Take me away. Construction management. When you're traffic management, slide over. Look at it. Which is your part? You're missing.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Wednesday, May the 21st. To start the meeting, will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be aware this meeting is being streamed on our YouTube channel and that the meeting may also be audio or video recorded by people present in the room. To start the meeting's agenda, we have the opportunity for public comment. So this is for anyone who has a comment, a question, or a subject they would like to raise that is not on the agenda this evening. Is there anybody present who would like to do that? I'm going to start at the back with this young lady. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone, please. You tell us your name and what it's about.
Okay, so good evening. My name is Lexi Kaplan. I'm a sophomore at Westchester East High School and a West Goshen resident. And when I was younger, I attended the Coopersmith camps for many years. I loved them so much. And this summer, I'm working on earning my Girl Scout Gold Award. And for my project, I'm running a program at the Township summer camps to promote reading and literacy among little kids. The purpose of my project is to stop the summer slide. For those who may not know, the summer slide is a statistically proven loss of learned knowledge that occurs over the summer vacation. This loss is especially prevalent in elementary school kids. However, it doesn't take much to slow the summer slide. The learning loss can be prevented simply by being consistent with educational activities. Completing these activities once a week over the summer has been shown to slow the effects of the slide and help prepare kids for the upcoming school year. The goal of my project is to get kids reading over the summer, but also present learning in a fun, engaging way that encourages kids to enjoy reading. My project has two key parts. The first part is the book drive, which will collect books in order to create little libraries specifically for campers at each of the 3 camps. The goal is to give the campers special access to age-appropriate books all summer long. The kids will be able to borrow and return books whenever they want. They would be able to take stories home and share with their families and foster their love of reading at home as well. The second part of my project will be my time spent at the camps. I will spend 1 hour a week at each of the 3 camps. During the hour, I will have story time for any campers who want to participate, followed by fun, engaging crafts that will go with the theme of the story. I will have 2 different levels of crafts, an easier one for the younger kids and a more difficult one for the older kids. And the goal of this time is to get kids to engage in reading and learning activities in a non-classroom environment and encourage them to enjoy reading. I would like to thank Mr. Steins and Mr. Lear for helping me make this project a reality. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kaplan. That really sounds like a wonderful plan. And Tom, thanks for being here. I'm sure Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Kaplan about her planned project? Well, it was a very thorough explanation, so I don't have any myself. Does any of the other board members have a question?
Good luck.
So we wish you the best, and hopefully the weather will be great and everyone will enjoy reading and no backsliding with the kids. Thank you. Is there anyone else with a question or comment tonight? Yes.
Hi. My name is Barbara Reinhardt. I'm a West Goshen Township resident of 15 years. I live on Sylvan Road. I understand, as recently as yesterday, by talking to Steve Lyons, who is on the Historical Commission, that the property at 905 West Town Road is in foreclosure, has been in foreclosure several times, owes property to the township, may go up for sheriff's sale. I would like to circulate a petition to keep this property, to encourage the township to look into this and possibly purchase this property so that we could keep it as open space rather than it going into development. It's zoned R3, so it would be single family or multi-family units. This property is, I'm going to call it contiguous with Barker Park through Falcon Road. It's an 8.2 acre property. The house on the property is in dilapidated state. The barn is dilapidated state. It's in a sad situation. I think that if the township owned this property and turned it into part of Barker Park or another part of our recreation areas, this would be great for the township. It would be the one last undeveloped, or one of the last undeveloped tracts in West Goshen Township. I'm a tree hugger, tree saver. I would love to save this as an open space. It also has historical significance as possibly an American Indian historical site and also part of the Underground Railroad. So there would be a lot of benefits to West Goshen Township if we prevented this property from going into development. I have a petition that I pretty much plan to walk around and get 30 or so signatures from the properties that back up to this tract of land. That would be Falcon Road, Daisy Lane, Bobolink, West Town, I guess. And anybody, obviously, with the township that would like to have open space and an extension of possibly our park system. You can sign this petition. I'll be at the back. I'll stay late at the meeting, and you can either read it and sign it if that's your desire. Questions?
Does the board have any questions for Ms. Reinhardt?
Good luck.
No, thank you. The board, just FYI, the board is aware of this property, and we have had executive sessions about the potential acquisition of real estate. It's a significant value for this property. It's currently in foreclosure and has been at sheriff's sale at least 2 or 3 times this year, I think. And each time it's postponed because the property owner does pay something towards the outstanding commitment on it. So at this point, I believe the board had an appraisal done, and we have considered whether it would be something that would be good to acquire for the township, but the valuation is very significant, and at this point, we did not agree to move forward with that. But by all means,
was 1.6 million. That's all I have. I don't know anything more. I just heard about this yesterday.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
Okay, I'd just like to respond.
To this.
Yes. Should I come up?
If you don't mind, so we can hear you on the
Yeah.
video.
I am Doug White, West Goshen Township, and also on the Historical Commission. We know about this house, and alternative to outright purchase would be an open space easement or transferable development rights, where the town, it would be a lot cheaper, and they can also deed restrict the property and preserve the open space. So it's just an idea.
Thank you, Doug. Is there anyone else with a question, comment, or a new topic they want to raise under public comment? Very good, then we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is discussion and possible approval of a request from the Westchester Fire Department for the relocation of 2 existing fire hydrants on Baylowell Drive and the addition of 1 new fire hydrant. So I believe this is, Chris, is this with me or you?
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to kick it off. And
If you wouldn't mind, Chris. Thank you.
Before the board this evening is a request from the Westchester Fire Department to relocate 2 existing fire hydrants on Baylowell Drive and add a new fire hydrant at the intersection of Baylowell Drive and Goshen Road. Provided a letter that was sent from Mark Scanlon, Chief of the Westchester Fire Department. The location and placement of hydrants is subject to the approval of the board pursuant to section 1802 of the second-class township code. I did speak with our fire marshal, Andrea Testa, and our director of public works, Mark Bertolami, about these proposed changes, and neither expressed any opposition to the relocations. I contacted Chief Scanlon regarding the request for some additional information, and he provided the following. The 2 existing hydrants being requested to be relocated are currently mid-block, and the thought is to move them to the corresponding intersections. This will allow engines responding to incidents to have better knowledge about the location, since they will be at intersections as opposed to mid-block. Additionally, the proposed relocations will be in a better area to serve the side streets, which are Lynn Circle and James Drive, which do not currently have hydrants on them. And then adding a hydrant at the intersection of Baylowell and Goshen Road will provide the neighborhood with better coverage should they be needed. I did review the imagery, and there isn't currently a hydrant at this location. I did also speak with Aqua regarding this proposal, and for the new hydrant proposed, the monthly fee would be $38.32 per month, which would be just under $389 annually. There would be no cost to the township for the installation, since we would be paying the monthly fee. And regarding the relocation, Ms. Thomas indicated that Aqua PA would like to wait until the main relocation project if possible, but she did not have a date at this time and did say it could be a few years.
Thanks, Chris. I have some questions. What was the genesis of this request from the fire department? I mean, if looking at the Chief Scanlon's letter, it indicates that ARCA were planning this main work this year, yet your contact with them says, well, it's on the to-do list, but maybe several years before we get around to it. So do you know the genesis of this request?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question. I believe there might be a representative from the fire company here tonight, or as Mark indicated that there would be. I don't know if there is. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question.
Obviously this development's been there for a substantial amount of time, and then for this request to come out, I was wondering, was there a change in a standard? Is there a particular problem that's been identified over the years about this location, and what are the implications for other streets?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question.
What other questions does the board have?
I guess my only question is, since Aqua is talking about a possible delay, how does the fire department feel about that?
Is it critical?
Yeah, is it critical?
Is it a critical area where we can't wait a couple of years? Those are all the questions I would have before I can.
Well, there's no information to say it was a critical issue. It's just that it seemed to be opportunistic, and if ARCA was doing main work or repairs in that section, they would like to take advantage of that and relocate these fire hydrants at the same time. So in the absence of any pressing statement from Chief Scanlon, these unanswered questions, my personal opinion is to wait till we get more information, or ARCA have a specific time and they're going to do this repair, this work.
Great.
Anyone else disagree? So we'll push on, if that's okay, Chris. We're going to just table this.
That's fine with me. I mean, I can go back to Chief Scanlon and ask for like the genesis, like was there an incident that kind of generated this, and report back to the board. I'm happy to do that.
Well, it also maybe you find out that you would have it done sooner rather than later. You're talking a couple of years here down the road, so is that acceptable to the fire?
Well, he seems to have tied it to the belief that ARCA was going to be doing some work, and absent that.
That is not what Lisa Thomas from Aqua stated to me.
Okay. All right, so we've got some inconsistencies we need to get them answered.
I can follow up with Chief Scanlon and report back to the board.
Yeah, it'd be good if someone attended if they wanted to push this along. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is discussion and possible approval of resolution number 21, 2025, granting preliminary final land development approval for an application at 929 South High Street, Parkway Shopping Center, proposing the redevelopment of the site with a Wawa convenience store with gas pumps. So I will, Brian, if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce this, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, and I believe the applicant has representatives here. We'll be hearing from them shortly. So I'll just give the background on this. I'm going to use information that's in the resolution, which was in the public information materials that are available for the meeting. So before the board this evening is the potential granting of approval for this preliminary final land development plan, as I described. The applicant is the owner of a 5.428 acre parcel of property located at 929 South High Street. The property is currently improved with a 49,260 square foot one-story building, the shopping center building. The applicant intends to redevelop the property by demolishing approximately 28,700 square feet of this existing shopping center building, reconfiguring the entrance drive to South High Street and the parking lot access, constructing a 6,049 square foot Wawa convenience store with 8 fuel pumps, utilities, stormwater management facilities, lighting and landscaping, which is the land development. The property is located in the C1 neighborhood commercial zoning district. The proposed land development has been depicted on 31 sheets that have been provided by the applicant. These include also a lighting plan, a erosion and sediment control plan, and the overall land development plans. Collectively, these are known as the plans. So background on this application: the board issued a conditional use decision in order dated back in March 19th, 2024, wherein the board had denied the applicant's request for conditional use pursuant to the section 8414 of the West Goshen Township. The applicant filed an appeal on the board's decision that denied that use, and this appeal was filed with the Court of Common Pleas of Chester County. As part of the process after that, the applicant and the board decided to enter into a settlement agreement, which was approved by the court in September of 2024, and the terms of the settlement agreement are incorporated as part of this overall request for approval of the preliminary final land development plan. There's other information related to the plan, which I won't get into because I'm sure we'll be discussing it shortly. And at this point, I'm going to just see if Brian has any comments before handing it over to the applicants.
The only thing I'd like to say is that this plan was reviewed both by myself and by Sheldon, the zoning officer, in January and in April of this year. So you have before you tonight the April reviews. The January review was submitted to the board as for history, but most of the comments in my January letter were addressed. There's still some outstanding comments in the April letter, and they are incorporated into the decision that Kristen Camp has, your solicitor has prepared for tonight.
Okay.
I know the development team is here to make a presentation and answer any questions you may have. Chris Williams, the traffic engineer, is here to answer any questions regarding traffic. I can say that, to my knowledge, Chris can confirm that the PennDOT HOP has not been submitted yet. It's still in the process of being developed. So that process for the actual permit has not started with PennDOT. They've gotten through their scoping with PennDOT, but they haven't gotten to the actual permit application process yet.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Brian, if I can.
Do you want to ask a question now?
I was going to ask a question to Brian.
Okay.
Relative to his
My April
summary
3rd
letter. Pardon me?
My April 3rd letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Or no, I'm sorry, January 30th, 25.
Well, I have a letter April 3rd that was issued subsequent to that letter.
Maybe it'd be best for you to hold the questions. Let's hear from the applicant, and let's see if some of them get answered, and if not, then we'll go to the questions from the board. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Greg Edelman here on behalf of the applicant. We did submit the plan in the fall, as Brian had stated, and we've gone through a number of reviews by your staff and responded to comments addressing the overwhelming majority of them. In terms of the PennDOT process, just to clarify, We haven't submitted the design yet, but we have done, I believe, Guy, right, the scoping and the TIS, so Chris is nodding his head too. So we've gone over what's going to be designed. We just haven't prepared the design yet. So we're in the second step of the highway occupancy permit process at this time. But as Chairman stated, we had gone through the conditional use process, an appeal, and a settlement. The plan that is pending before the board this evening is revised from the conditional use plan in a number of ways, many of which were part of the settlement discussion, and now they've been fully engineered. Our project engineer manager, Alex Peel, is here from RGS. I would like to have him just go over and represent the plan and highlight some of those differences, so that way you now can see them in the public forum and also see that they've been implemented as everyone had discussed. And then we're absolutely here to answer any questions you might have with respect to what's being proposed. And we do have the rest of our development team here as well to assist in answering those questions. So if I could have Alex do a brief presentation, that'd be great.
Okay. Alex, do you want this plan or the one with the red lines on it?
This plan is fine to give the overview.
Okay.
The other one I'll use just to touch on the three specific items that were discussed discussed at the last planning commission meeting. So the plan before you is largely consistent with what has been seen before. With that said, we have, through the process, made several updates to the design based on feedback from the planning commission and staff through that review process. So I'll just highlight the plan as a whole. Orientation-wise, I always like to start with 202 is here, High Street is here. The existing shopping center currently comes out to about this point. So what's being proposed is the demolition of a portion of the existing shopping center in this area and the construction of a new Wawa convenience store and gas pumps associated with it. Through that review process, there was a lot of discussion about the vehicular circulation on the site. So I'll step through that initially. So coming into the site, originally the design had a ingress and egress point here, as well as a full access point here, ingress and egress. There was concern about vehicles coming out of the parking lot here, so that drive has been revised to just be a right in and no egress from that point. As part of that process, to help ensure that that occurs, the existing island that is out there is here. We extended that further into the site. That blocks anyone from being able to cross over from this entrance only point. Also, as far as big picture circulation, there was concern about movements through the parking lot at the rear of the Wawa to access the rear of the existing center. Based on that feedback, we actually added a service drive here that both provides access also into the Wawa parking lot, as well as access to the rear of the existing shopping center. Staying with the entrance drive here, another point of discussion was the existing McDonald's. So the existing McDonald's is here, parking spaces to the south of it. We added an island that will separate the drive from those parking spaces. Therefore, people can back out of here and circulate out to the main drive without intermixing the traffic between the McDonald's parking lot and the main access drive. With that, those were really the main updates through the process. There was discussion and agreement as far as the stormwater design to exceed the township requirements, which has been done as part of the design that has been submitted to the township. We are going to make some adjustments to the final calculations to bring the amount of reduction up a bit from where we are right now. We're right in the ballpark We just need to make some tweaks to the facility to add a little bit more capacity to that. The landscaping was added to through the process along the frontage. That is here. There will be shrubs and trees along the frontage. Currently, if you're familiar with this property, the parking lot comes all the way out to High Street. It literally is paved all the way to the road. As part of this project, that paving will be removed, and there will be both the landscaping noted as well as lawn space included in that area to buffer the parking lot from the ramp and High Street. Another element that was refined through the design process is the pedestrian circulation. So there will be a walk added along the north side of the Wawa that will connect from the intersection all the way back and connect to the existing shopping center. So that will provide a walkway through the site and to the existing walkway along the front of the shopping center that exists now.
Alex, can I ask you a couple of questions? I think it'll help from if the board looked at the planning commission minutes. So there were a couple of issues the planning commission raised. One was to make sure that the location of the trash enclosure, that a trash truck could pull straight in. Have you guys addressed that through this plan?
So we did take that feedback. If you're able to zoom in, maybe just where the 3 red highlights are, Brian, that would be great. So the first item noted was the alignment of the dumpster enclosure with the drive. You know, a good question was asked, which was the concern that this drive wasn't lined up with the dumpster enclosure fully. The doors for the trash truck access actually are lined up with that drive. And then there is a section here for recyclables with a man door that wouldn't be lined up with the drive, as that wouldn't be accessed by the trash truck directly. So this is in alignment with the drive. Another item that was discussed was there's propane enclosure here, concern about the separation between it and the parking lot. There was some discussion about potentially using a U-shaped bollard along the parking spaces that abut or on the other side of the sidewalk from the enclosure. Based on past experience with the U-shaped bollards, Wawa had suggested that we just propose additional 6-inch steel bollards. So on the original plan, these are 5 foot on center. That width was reduced down to 3 foot 4 foot on center to provide additional separation between the parking lot and that propane enclosure. The third item, if you pan up a little bit, was just some discussion about the turning movement off of this drive into the rear of the center. We did adjust that, I believe, from a 15 to a 20-foot radius. This turning movement was already functioning as it was originally designed, but adding some additional radius there just eases that movement, makes it a little bit smoother on from the main access drive onto the secondary access drive.
Can you go back to the landscaping? Did you? I thought there was a conversation that you would agree to put a berm.
Yes.
Along the frontage.
Yep, that was something I believe that may have been, I don't know if that was part of the direct conversation with the planning commission or just the feedback we received following it, but yeah, some discussion about adding some berming along in the lawn area here in association with the landscaping, and we would be agreeable to doing that.
And are you the person to speak to about, just to notify the board about the changes in response to Shelby's comments on the lighting? Is that something that you can address?
Yeah,
You want to do it?
Oh, you might be a little more in tune with some of the correspondence today.
So when we were looking at responding to Shelby's comment with respect to dimming of lighting, we had safety concerns during the operations of the Wawa facility. In particular, there are 2 light standards, and you stole it. Where was the light? Okay. Generally in this area behind the canopy, A1 and A4 are labeled. And we were looking at how do we further reduce the intensity of foot candles. So we're proposing to change the lighting fixtures to a B4B type lighting fixture. We supply the detail. And what that really does is it shields and orients the lighting to come into the parking lot. And it needs to be lit because you can see here are the underground tanks, and the refueling occurs throughout any time period. So when they come in, whether it's dusk or nighttime, they need to be able to see what they're doing in this location. So they need to have the light, but they don't need to have light behind the light spread towards the berm. So the special fixture that we're going to put on these two light standards and the photometric plans, the revised ones that we've submitted, actually demonstrate that the foot candles really cut off very quickly. In fact, before they hit the landscaped area, they're usually close to 0.0 to 0.1 foot candles. So really what it does is better contain the light going into the property so it can satisfy the operational and safety concerns and at the same time address any potential spread issues. So that's how we were proposing to address Shelby's comment that she raised in her, I think it was the April 1st review letter.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, is that standard actually in use at any other location in the area?
That light standard?
Yes.
I don't think so. I'm looking over to my development team, the B4B lighting standard.
The manufacturer is new for this, like about a year ago. So any stores that have been built within a year will have them.
Mm-hmm.
In this area, probably Woodford Road, 30 in Woodford and Exton.
Okay.
We'll probably have some of those fixtures at that site.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I ask, you talked about bollards in front of the propane tanks.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about what pedestrian safety measures you're putting in place around the building itself? Will there be a curved area? Will there be bollards? What exactly is going to be around the store?
Yeah, so if Brian, you're able to zoom in, I think you'd be able to see if they're small dots, but if we zoom in enough. So to answer your question, there will be bollards all the way around the store. What I was noting earlier was the standard placement or separation of those bollards is 5 foot on center. We've reduced that down to 3 foot 4 inches on center in the area of the propane enclosure. So you can see small dots around the store on the sides with the pedestrian walk. We don't have those out from the store along the loading area here, but this is the pedestrian zone. And then here would be the propane with the closer spacing of those bollards.
And also, this is a change with the two entrances on this particular plan from the very original plan, right?
Yes, that's right.
So there's a lot of the parking is in the rear of the building. Now there's going to be an entrance into the Wawa from the rear as well.
That's correct.
Is there going to be bollards around the dog bones too?
Around the, I'm sorry, what?
The dispensers?
Yeah, underneath the canopy?
Underneath,
Yes.
yeah, underneath the dispensers themselves.
Also, little dots, I apologize, but yeah, you can see these are the columns here, and then the small dots, they're standard bollard spacing that Wawa uses around their gas pumps.
Can you talk a little bit more about the stormwater management plan that you're proposing at this point?
Yes. Brian, if you could, if you're able to give me the full view of the, yeah. So the existing shopping center has no stormwater management facilities at all. Currently, it is just a conveyance system that is in the parking lot, so just a pipe system that comes through and discharges to the stream area down here. So currently, everything is running off of the site. As part of this project, we're reducing the impervious cover for the property by about 7.5%. A little less than half an acre will be reduced in areas like I noted before, where currently the paving is coming all the way up to High Street with this lawn area and other green spaces throughout the updated design. So that is a factor in the stormwater design because obviously we're reducing impervious cover. To address and to meet the township ordinance requirements for stormwater management, we're proposing a subsurface stormwater facility here that will capture runoff, that will reduce the discharge and the volume of stormwater to both meet the township ordinance as well as exceed that by another 25% with the reductions that will be realized through the collection of runoff in this facility. That will then tie into the existing stormwater facility or stormwater conveyance system here and then be discharged. Yep, and there is a water quality snout on the existing system that helps to separate any debris, pollutants that would come into the existing system, again, before it's discharged into the stream.
Is there another snout prior to the infiltration bed entrance? I believe there is, correct?
Yes.
There's a snout right here.
Yeah.
And who's going to be responsible for maintaining those snouts?
Property.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, and that would be covered by the stormwater management.
Right.
As part of a conversation with Brian earlier today, he mentioned that there's still some debate around the calculation that was done for the infiltration of the bed itself. And, you know, until that's completed and reviewed by Brian to his satisfaction, that's an outstanding item, I believe.
So I can comment briefly on this. I did receive a revised report at 4:30 today. I haven't had a chance to review the whole report, but I did pull out the new comparison chart from pre and post that you and I spoke about earlier. I spoke with Alex, I spoke with his engineer. And the chart has been prepared to show the 25%, that they meet the 25% reduction that I recommended in my first letter on January 30th. I can't comment if I agree with the calculations how they got there because I haven't had a chance to review it yet. But they indicate in the chart that they do meet the 25% reduction in the rate and 25% additional infiltration requirement that we talked about.
Okay.
And they'll have to demonstrate that if the board passes this motion the way it's drafted, because it requires compliance with outstanding items in Brian's letter.
Yeah, and we appreciate Brian's feedback on that. It was a clarification item and a tweak to the design, which we were close to meeting already, but this also helps spell it out more clearly for everyone. But we'll certainly defer to Brian to confirm that he's acceptable with the approach.
Okay, good. Other questions from the board, from Mr. Peel?
Yeah, I have another question too. Can we go back to the one print there showing the whole view? I want to talk about the curbing. One of the waivers you're requesting is a reduction in the height of the curbing from 8 inches down to 6 inches throughout the internal site. There's some issues with that, particularly concerning pedestrian safety. So where are you're suggesting throughout the entire site here that all the curbing, would be reduced from 8 to 6 inches?
Yes.
So that would be a significant reduction in the curbing throughout. So the township engineer, from 2 letters written to you, both in January as well as the latest one in April, suggested that that would be okay, but with these following exceptions. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Brian, about where you feel that the 8-inch height on the curbing should be retained?
Yeah, so my concern with the 8-inch curbing was strictly for the access from basically this point for this island,
right,
this island, and this side of basically to where the curb line met the pedestrian. They drop down with the depressed curb, they would drop down, they come back up, it would be 6 inches. But on the incoming traffic side would be 8.
So it would be the accessing traffic would be seeing
but access
the 8-inch high curbing.
Yes, and then that would vary from the PennDOT, and then everything around the internal of the site of Wawa, I don't have an issue if they're requesting a 6-inch curb.
And we don't have any concerns with that either. That's the main vehicular, or that is the vehicular access into the property. The 6-inch honestly is an issue with pedestrians. The 8-inch is considered a tripping hazard often, which is why we've proposed that. like in the parking lot areas. But we totally agree, and we'll make that update based on Brian's recommendations.
And Brian, I captured that conversation in the very first paragraph of the decision, so I just want to make sure I captured that correctly. The board grants the waivers provided, which I had outlined above, provided the curbing along the access drive, the separation island between the McDonald's and the access drive, and the single curb island must be installed with an 8-inch reveal. Is that what your recommendation is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Other questions from the board for Mr. Peel? Okay, what I'd like to do next then is go through the specific waivers that you asked for from the land development ordinance and make sure that the board understands them and that Brian has weighed in as well, if that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is just go through page 2 of the resolution at the bottom there. So the first one was section 7217C10, which was a waiver to not provide plan information within 300 feet of all boundaries of the proposed development. And Brian, I believe in your letter you have said that that is acceptable to you.
Yes.
And of course, the board has a chance to weigh in as to whether there's any issues from the board's perspective. Does any of the board members have an issue with that requested waiver?
Well, the plan information that's required here by our ordinance, will that be provided by some other source, such as PennDOT or?
So this is a standard ordinance requirement for ordinances before we went into the GIS, the mapping systems we have now, that we have information. So this was a way to have the developers provide information to townships prior to the digital age. So you're getting plans that show 300, you could take the paper plans and make your own map, mesh, right? But anymore, for them to go 300 feet up 202 and 300 feet down,
It really doesn't serve any
it doesn't serve any purpose for the development. It was more for mapping for the township purposes than for development purposes.
Very good. The next requested waiver is from section 72-18C9, which is to not provide cartway edge length data for the cartway of South High Street. Brian, did you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, this is another section of the ordinance that dates back to the time when properties were described in the center line of roads. So then they would lay the roads out with cartway data like meets and bounds and lengths, so the surveyors could lay the roads out for where the right-of-way across properties were. There's no issue here because the road is existing, the right-of-way is existing, so there's no reason for them to give us meets and bounds descriptions of the edges of the roads because they're already built. It's more, it was done for before we had the electronic surveying and everything else we have now, and we laid out a plan by hand.
So I made a note to self that when we go through this ordinance update process, this is something that needs to be stressed.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to section, I'm assuming the board does not have any objections to that waiver. Okay, move on to section 72-18C16, which is to not provide invert elevations for some of the sanitary manholes that are sealed and are not being tied into any new laterals. So I believe, Brian, you suggested they need to get approval from our sewer authority engineer for that
And
waiver.
I didn't see any information from HRG that they had any issues with that.
Okay, so that's an open issue, but I believe in the decision, it's in one of the conditions in there is that they will need to obtain that.
Yeah, obtaining approval from HRG, because I believe all the information they need to provide their connections is providing the plan for HRG. It's the manholes that are associated with the redevelopment.
Okay.
But that is, I don't have any issues with the waiver because they have to provide information to HRG that they need for connection.
Okay. Mr. Peel, you understand that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last one here is from section 72-4C, appendix 1 and 2, to allow a vertical curb height of 6 inches rather than required 8 inches for curbing within the site and not for curbing located in the public street right of way. I believe we've already addressed that with Mr. Hellman's question on it earlier. Okay, so that was the waivers that were requested. Did I miss any of them? No. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just read some additional conditions that were provided by our solicitor to the board today, which have not been provided to the public in the packet of information that was posted on the website on Friday, because as I said, they're only completed this afternoon, so just bear with me while I find them.
I have another copy for you.
I have it, yeah. So I'm referring now to the decision section within the resolution, and what we have is a new number 5, which is that the applicant shall revise the landscape plan to provide an 18 to 24-inch berm along the frontage of the property where the proposed landscaping should be planted. We've already discussed this, and it was acceptable to the applicant.
That's correct.
Condition number 6 was applicant should provide the township with a copy of the PennDOT HOP and document with the township how it complies with all conditions imposed by PennDOT in the HOP. So this is with respect to the ongoing process in obtaining the HOP. As you're aware, one of the major concerns that the board had in the original conditional use process was the overall safety of the intersection with the property. And you know, we have had traffic engineers. I think now we've got 3 altogether. They've all provided testimony in one shape or another about some questions and concerns about that intersection. But at this point, per the settlement agreement, we are working through that process entirely with PennDOT. So you're aware of this process?
Yes.
Okay. Condition number 7 is the applicant shall continue to be responsible to complete a post-construction traffic impact assessment 6 months after the opening of the store as required by paragraph 12 of the settlement agreement. So we're just making sure that that condition is reflected in the final saldo approval.
I have a comment relative to that.
Okay, Tina.
Instead of saying, well, if you want to say 6 months, I would add on to that, or within the time frame the college students' traffic is back in school during a time frame. I just want to ensure the study is performed during the highest traffic period. So 6 months I have a problem with because of the fact that if it's in the summer, we're going to do the traffic study in the summer, within 6 months of whenever that is. I don't want that limitation. I want it to be performed during the highest traffic. So whatever wording we need to incorporate in there to allow for that.
Can we add, Greg, provided that if it's during the summer, we'll delay the study?
Well, typically what happens is that when school's not in session for a PennDOT post-development study, they incorporate a factor, I believe. We don't necessarily just leave it blank.
I don't want that factor. I'd rather have live. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's a college, it's a little different.
That is true.
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree that it would be the 6 month time frame or
I'm getting a nod from
a
the
later
traffic
as long as, saying okay? So we could add as long as it's not during the summer.
Well, can we have it when college is in session, or, you know,
college is in
just
session.
specifically indicate that it's during the period
Provided
when
that
the
the study
college.
must be conducted when college is in session.
Yeah.
Yes.
That may delay when it gets done.
And that's
That's
fine.
fine.
Well, that's fine. I'd rather
Yeah.
have it delayed. That's why the 6 months that I was having a problem with because I
Yeah,
don't know when that's going to occur.
I was more worried that you'd have an issue if we had to wait longer to do it.
No, that's not. I'd rather be accurate and wait no longer.
Can I add to that? That
Yeah.
prior to conducting the study, the applicant reach out to the township to make sure we're all in agreement as to when it's being completed at now one.
I would hope that they would do that anyway.
I think that's in here. I think we have to consult with the township on all of this stuff, so.
Paragraph 12, yeah, paragraph 12 is settlement agreement, a lot more detailed, but I'm happy to write that in as well.
Thank you.
Do you have any other
No,
comments on
I'm
that?
set.
Okay, all right. Move on to number 8 then. As part of the applicant's PennDOT HOP approval process for the road improvements along South High Street, the applicant shall prepare a construction traffic management plan, which the township and PennDOT must approve. That plan sheet shall be added to the plans and recorded with the final plans. So this was in the settlement agreement. I forget the item number that it was, but this was a specific request in the settlement agreement that was approved. So we're just again reiterating it within the condition of this resolution.
Well, I'd like to add something.
Okay, go
If I
ahead.
may. I'd like to add at the end, which can be altered if and when number 7 above occurs, because we've changed 7 now, so that kind of alters 8 a little bit.
Well, no, 8 is about doing the work to actually construct the changes to the entrance. The 7 is post-construction completion.
8 is part of their HOP. They have to show to us how they're going to manage the traffic during the construction process. It's
Right.
specific to the construction of the development. And that was
Okay.
concerned about how that was all going to work. So I talked to Chris today that is something, or Brian and Chris, I think, that is something typically that you see through the HOP process. They work through that. The township is being a participant in that process, so we can weigh in on that. That's what that is geared towards.
It wasn't clear to me that that was construction, so should that be reworded to
Well, construction.
It says construction, yeah.
construction/traffic management plan, so it's both. So
But it's specific to the work along the High Street.
That's
I understand that, it's specific to the construction, but the way it's worded is construction/traffic management plan, and the thing in 7 is also the traffic
Well,
management.
I'm repeating what was stated in the settlement agreement, that's how it was worded. How would you want it to be worded? Shall prepare just a.
Take out traffic management plan.
No, we want to understand the traffic management plan while they do the construction.
Okay,
work
how
on
about
High Street.
related to the construction? So leave it in traffic management plan specifically related to the construction.
Right, I mean, we have to do whatever PennDOT requires.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to make the wording reflect that, so what the actual concept is there for that sentence. That's clear to me.
Okay.
That's fine.
How about, okay, give me one second, I'm just trying to think around about control of traffic. So it could read, applicant shall prepare a traffic management plan for controlling the construction traffic.
Yeah,
That makes sense?
yeah.
It's even the right of way. That's the difference. Because there'll be construction on
Right,
site,
right.
but you won't have a traffic management
There you go.
plan.
Construction in the right of way. Thank you.
Chris, what do you think about that?
It's perfect. I wasn't around when the settlement agreement was prepared, so I'm not sure the origin of this. Is the traffic management plan just to manage the construction of the road improvements?
Yes.
Or is it construction traffic in general?
I think
the road.
it's road improvements.
Yeah, that's how it should be
So-
worded.
I think it's being worded.
This is for the road and also the relocation of the access, because that's all handled through the HOP to keep
That's
traffic
correct.
open while they're relocating the access, because the
Yeah.
access is being
The improvements that are related to the HOP.
That's,
Then that's how it should be
So
worded.
it could be outside the right of way, but it's related to.
under the HOP.
Yes.
Related to improvements.
Well, PennDOT likes to take 150 feet into a property, so if you want to include that, we know that drill.
Required by HOP, okay. Okay.
Okay, and then the last additional condition is number 9, which is the applicant shall revise the lighting plan to require installation of B4B fixtures with shields behind those fixtures on the light standards marked A1 and A4 on the lighting plan, and that was already discussed previously by Mr. Peel. Okay, Chris, I think I've got them all there. There were, all the other things were already included in the information that was provided in the public packet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I just have one more thing to add.
Go ahead.
In Brian's January 30th letter, on number 23, we talk about, I'll read it, it's probably easier. The roof drains on the east side of the new Wawa are proposed to tie directly into the underground infiltration BMP. Appropriate measures to prevent debris from entering the BMP shall be added to the plans. I said also add inspections and maintenance to that. If we're going to,
I'm sorry, can you catch me up here? Where is it on the January
it's
letter?
number 23, second paragraph, number 23.
Of my letter.
Mhm.
So the operation and maintenance agreement that they signed
That's
requires them to maintain these.
Right.
They added the cleanouts, they're on the plan already, the
Right.
clean
Any
out.
stormwater facilities that they're installing, the stormwater management agreement attaches the post-construction stormwater management plan. It says that the property owner is responsible, and there's frequencies stated based on the stormwater code.
Does it specifically say what they're responsible for
Yes.
as far as the maintenance?
Yeah, the
Plan
plan notes do that. The
Yeah.
plans that the BMP agreement references, when it's recorded, has all the information about
Right.
frequency and how they have to maintain.
For
all-
each of the items?
For each of the items on the
Okay,
site.
on
yes.
site.
That's
Yeah.
all handled on the
So we
plans.
record both the plans and the operation and maintenance notes as part of every stormwater management plan. Per your requirements, also per DEP requirements now, under their chapter 102 regulations. So it's in there, and it'll be recorded and run with the property in perpetuity.
Okay, it's chapter 201, DEP?
102.
102.
102 regulations.
Can I ask a question? I just want to make sure I got this, because I was confused with what Alex said about the bollard. So the way condition 4 read, said applicant shall install a more substantial bollard, because as of last week, you were still contemplating the one So should we revise that to say applicants shall reduce the separation distance between the bollards to be 3 foot 4 inches on center in the location of the pane? Does that satisfy
Yes,
what the
that's
concern
good.
was? Okay.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Okay.
That's what they're proposing. If the board-
So instead of a more substantial bollard, which in my mind meant a different bollard,
Yes.
you're installing the same, it's just putting them closer together.
Would
Okay.
that be the same standards around the dispensers? The bollards be the same standards around the dispensers and as far as distance?
I'd have to look at the exact distance, but
Because there's usually standards around dispensers for the bollards.
It's different.
I think it is, yeah. And when I say the dispensers, I mean the base, the dog bone, piece of it, yeah.
So there's a specific standard for that. I don't know who sets that standard.
We have the details.
Propane should, because they're above ground storage tanks. So as far as the distance, shouldn't they be similar to the underground storage tanks? As far as distance?
Propane is slightly different because it's the same as what we did at our 5 Points Road store.
Yeah.
We added that propane tank there. So that spacing is what we have.
A little bit different because it's above ground versus the dispensers. But you have a shear valve there.
But then the shear valve, yeah.
Whereas the propane, you don't have any shear valve or anything there. Yeah. So your standards are going to be probably closer together for your bollards.
You're going to take a picture of it. It's really tiny detail, so.
Right.
My eyes aren't quite
Well, what page do you want? Brian can blow it up on the screen.
Oh, that's a good point, 15.
Yeah.
31, and it's in the upper right-hand corner.
So those are, looks like 24 inches on center for the emergency shut-off.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kristen, you're going to revise number 4.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, does the board have any other questions related to the decision conditions? Brian, have you any other comments or issues you want to raise related to the resolutions it stands right now?
The resolution incorporates my letter, incorporates what Kristen and I had talked about with the HOP and the traffic plan. It also incorporates the 3 items that were raised at the planning commission meeting.
And have you reviewed the lighting plan beyond what was described at the front of the property to ensure that it meets our ordinance requirements?
Yes. We're just waiting for the revised plan to review it for the front.
Okay, so
You said it, didn't you? I thought it came in later in the day.
I think it came in at.
Came in at 4:30, yeah,
Yeah.
something they were working on throughout the day.
Yeah, so we haven't had a chance to review it yet, but we'll keep it.
But again, it was a Shelby letter comment, and that is a condition of approval. So they still have to make sure that that is all checking the box. She's satisfied, she'll issue another letter to confirm that before the board would sign the plans and release them.
okay. Kristen, do you have any other issues to raise?
No, I think I appreciate everyone's cooperation in helping sort through these issues. The planning commission's recommendations were good to get incorporated into this, so no.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to ask if there's anyone in attendance who, having heard the situation, all the issues and conditions that we have here, has any questions or comments at this point? Barbara,
This is with.
would you mind coming up to the microphone just so we get it on the screen?
I'm Barbara Reinhardt. This is with respect to the landscaping plan. I'm sure you haven't spec'd out the plans yet, but if you go to the first slide you had, there's light green areas. It looks to me like that is all probably turf grass, and I would like, since you're probably building all this soil up and the berm, it's all going to be new, correct?
That's correct.
That we consider using the genus Carex instead of non-native turf grass, which is pretty typical for all installations. It would only have to be mowed once a year, if that, and it would provide a much deeper root system for stormwater management, despite you've already done a nice job on this plan and added a better stormwater management. That is Carex is the genus. There are over 50 species in the Delaware Valley that are available. You can get plugs from Northbrook, so it would be very similar to installing grass. and it would take over completely in about 3 years. I would recommend Carex Appalachia, or basically the common name Appalachian sedge, particularly where the berm area is. I'm not sure, 24 inches, I'm not sure the slope of that's going to be, but it would be difficult to mow, and this would solve that problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. So that's a suggestion. Obviously, it's not a specific requirement in our ordinance, so we'd love it for you to take that into account when you finish up the complete design work. Thank you. Any other public comments or questions? Yes, sir. Would you mind coming up?
I was just curious if we could bring up the plan of how the fuel trucks are going to enter and exit. It seems it's very tight. How do we plan to bring those trucks in for fuel and then exit the facility without?
Yeah, there's, I think Brian's bringing it up now, but as part of...
Come back to the mic if you don't mind, because this is on YouTube. Thank you.
Which sheet I was waiting for to catch up to me, I'm sorry.
First one you have the green.
Yeah, it might, I believe those are actually separate exhibits.
Hang on.
I think they're maybe a set of 4 or 6 exhibits with the truck turning movements. So as Brian's bringing that up, as part of the review process, we submitted truck turning templates, vehicle moving templates for various different vehicles that would be accessing the site. So the truck sizing and specifications are based on the trucks that make the deliveries, in particular the gas deliveries to Wawa. We have a program called AutoTurn in AutoCAD that all the specifications of the truck go into, and then we run that truck through the site to ensure it can make all the turning movements through there. So
Do you agree that's going to be very large?
Yeah, and absolutely, you can't have a site that the trucks don't fit through. that
I was just
would
curious
be,
if you could point that out.
Yeah.
This is the Wawa oil truck. Is this the one you're looking for?
Yeah. So for that particular vehicle, we're showing it come in that first entrance that I noted is a one-way, so you have more width there to swing out because you don't have any opposing traffic. That loops around, the tanks are located here. This comes around. There is quite a bit of room between the canopy and the outside pavement edge here. And then around the outside, this is striping, so these are not barriers, but we still stay out of that striped area. Comes out to the two-way entrance here, and then it would circulate back out to the traffic light.
Your calculations, he's okay to make that entrance in and be able to get out without flipping on curves.
And with all of these, we include the specifications for the truck here in the upper right.
Awesome. Thank you. And the only other thing I have is a comment that it's unfortunate that the board originally, we've been through this whole process, and we thought originally that the traffic was a big consideration, and that was one of the main reasons that it was shut down. And it seems like we continue to have this traffic conversation, and we can't, based on what we've heard thus far, it's not feasible. But we're going to continue to go down this road until, in our perception, they provide a traffic report that appeases the board, and then we're going to move forward. So it's concerning to us living in that area.
So I just want to respond to that and give you the background. So when the board initially denied this application, there were 2 main areas of concern. One was the circulation of traffic and pedestrians within the property itself, based on the design that had been provided at that time. And then the second one was the overall traffic volume and flow in and out of the property, and concerns about both delays and safety. So during the process itself, the board felt that those 2 things were not in a position that we could approve the application. Subsequent to that, the applicant filed their appeal with the court. We decided that our basis for denial was such that given that we had testimony from 2 traffic engineers that this intersection could be designed in a way through the PennDOT HOP process that would be acceptable to PennDOT and that could be made to operate with minimal delays and an intersection that would be safe since it was controlled by signals. We were not experts in that. Our ability to execute a process through a court system, an outcome that would be successful to us, was undetermined, uncertain, would cost money, and we could end up with a situation where we had no conditions at all, that I've read some of them tonight. So the board decided it'd be behooving for both parties to have a discussion around a settlement agreement and find a way forward that did the best we could to satisfy and solve those problems. So with the first one, the traffic and pedestrian circulation within the property itself I believe this represents a substantial revision to what was originally put forward. And most of the issues that I believe have been addressed to the satisfaction of the board. The second one, we are relying on PennDOT to do what they need to do as experts in this field, together with input from our own traffic engineer, the applicant's design team, etc., and come up with what hopefully will be a good design as best as possible to handle the additional traffic flow. So I just want to make sure we understood the background.
I do, and I think being part of the original conversation, I think that the original traffic report that was reported was flawed. Given the time that it was taken in the summertime without the college being in. So I appreciate the board making sure that they do the traffic report at an appropriate time when the traffic is at its most.
They were requested to repeat that traffic study, which I believe they did. And as you probably heard me on public record say I don't like the process of using these national standards to determine the increased traffic flow for a generic retail store with gas. I just don't think that's appropriate for giving the correct numbers within this area of the country. Unfortunately, that's the standard that the traffic folks use. So we were unable to get any better data than that at the time of the decision.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, in discussions we did have with PennDOT throughout this entire process, the board made it very clear to them our concerns about the traffic, speed and volume along High Street. But again, that's a PennDOT road and they're going to make their call.
Sir, your name for the record?
Paul Hart.
Paul Hart. Thank you.
David, is there anyone else with a public comment question, Steve?
Yeah.
Would you like the rest of the mic, Steve?
Just to elaborate a little more on his comments at the Planning Commission meeting, I did ask a question about the length of the trucks. And what they have on the diagram on this drawing is 51 feet, and what I've seen at the other levels is 78 feet. So it will make a big difference in the turning radiuses of the trucks. Now, they reassured me at the Planning Commission meeting that we were only going to use 51-foot trucks. Maybe a small item, but when they pull a 78-foot truck in there, it's going to have a really hard time making the turns. And I would prefer to see them put a diagram up with a 78-foot length truck, because my feeling is that's what's going to end up being.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So does the applicant have a response to that? How are you going to control the size of the truck entry in this particular location?
And that's for gas deliveries that we're talking about? The gas delivery vehicle?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is controlled by Wawa. I mean, they control the deliveries to each of their stores. The modeling that was done for this store is based on the truck that will make deliveries to this store. Certainly, none of us want a truck that's going to be in the site that doesn't fit and doesn't make the turning movements as it should. So Wawa is in charge of that process in which trucks are accessing the site.
There's somebody here from Wawa. Would you like to comment on it, sir? As to how you control that logistically? Sorry to make you come up with that.
I have a question for him anyway.
Yeah, so our sites, whenever we do any deliveries, not just fuel, but any of them, we look at any restrictions, And that restrictions could be time restrictions for deliveries, it could be, measurements, issues with certain sites. There's a variety of different things. So all of our vendors, our delivery vendors, which includes the fuel trucks, they understand each site. They have basically a map, information for each site. So this site will have that information packet. Our fuel team, when they figure out what trucks are going where, they have all this information today. It's a very elaborate system that we determine what truck goes to which location with what brand of fuel. So there is a very detailed process to that. So I have faith in our team here for fuel, how our trucks are delivered and which trucks we use for the deliveries.
I have one question for you. I found in the past, especially like some of your smaller footprints in New York City and so forth, for the delivery of the gasoline, one of the issues was during the delivery process, hooking up to the stage 1 vapor recovery is an issue with a dual stage 1 vapor recovery versus a coaxial. There's a big difference in the delivery process and allowing room for the dual stage 1 vapor recovery, because it does take a different turn and a different hookup and a lot of different things that you have to count for to allow for the space. So do you know which type of stage 1 vapor recovery you're going to have, and did you allow for that?
Well, and it's changed. I mean, I know you're very knowledgeable with the sense of the vapor recovery systems, because they've changed over time. What we've been doing 5 years ago is different than what we were doing 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And what they do now. And as you can see with the way the trucking is and the way our trucks fill in and where the vapor recovery, like for instance our trucks when they can pull in, all of our trucks deliver to the passenger side. So that's the side of the truck. And then the system and the way that we have to make sure that our engineers design these sites is to make sure there's ample room for every one of the tanks and the full ports, that there is ability to unload, discharge, but also for the vapor recovery system as you described. So we look at these very elaborately. We make sure, and that's some of the reason why our areas around our canopy, we like to say that there's a large buffer. Some people complain that we have too much room, they feel like. Well, there's a method to our madness. The reason why is because we need to have that room it's not just for physically driving around. Right. There's other parts, as you know, to the fuel process, unloading, the discharge, the fuel or the vapor recovery system. So
it's all accounted for.
It is all accounted for. We have to be. I mean, we're regulated. You have LMI regulates us. Right. There's a lot of standards that regulate us.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone else with a question? Yes, ma'am. Would you mind coming up?
Good evening, Courtney Hartman, 29 East Road, Virginia. I guess a question, confirmation maybe. When I was looking at the drawings online earlier, I see you have trees that are in our backyards, literally. They're not going to be touched at all, right? So our property's back up. We're literally that third block in. So there's trees. Obviously, you're not going to touch our trees, but there's trees like behind the fence that provides us coverage. So we don't have to see this.
Are you speaking of what's up here?
Yeah.
Nothing up there is being touched.
So nothing over there will be touched. Okay.
What you see is green, is what the area is being touched.
Okay, so nothing existing is going to be hacked away or anything? And then in terms of the stormwater, we already have very wet backyards. So where it's going to empty, where that creek is,
yes.
Like, do we know that creek can handle taking that much more water in? Because we already get flooded in our backyards.
So that was one of the reasons, the genesis of the comment, which they've agreed to from my January 30th letter, was to not only reduce the flow as required by the township, but exceed the reduction by 25%.
Okay, so it's going to ratchet it.
So yeah, so the township requires you to go, which they model the site in a pre-development condition that's actually considered 40% of the site as a meadow was disturbed. That gives them a number of what's flowing on the site in pre-development conditions. The ordinance requires them to meet that flow in the post conditions. They're going to reduce that flow in the post by 25%.
Okay.
So that's where, so they're 25% below that, and they're also going to put 25% more volume in the ground infiltration than they're required by the township ordinance.
Okay.
So it should be even better than this now.
Okay, I was thinking it was pushing more as opposed to.
No.
fully work out. And I guess one last question.
Just before you go to the next question, I don't want to imply that what will happen here is going to improve the condition of your backyard, because you can see it discharges downstream. So yes, there'll be less volume, less rate flow off the property. There's more green space. There's these new stormwater controls. So the impact of the stream where it discharges will be less than it is today, substantially. But where you are, whatever's reaching your property is
we just don't want to make it worse for the whole neighborhood, right?
Yes.
And then I guess my last question is around noise. So we don't have anything 24/7 back there, right? We haven't since before COVID, when I guess McDonald's stopped being open 24/7. And I know there's noise ordinances because I have called a few times on the activities that go on back in that parking lot. How are we going to ensure that that Wawa doesn't turn into like people hanging out, blasting their music in their cars? I mean, because that used to happen quite often when McDonald's was open. And we have, I mean, you could probably go back to the records, I've called many times. So in terms of noise, like, I mean, it's right behind our house, it's right in front of Jill's house. It's like, how do we cope with it?
We wanted to, we pulled the noise ordinance today because the board was concerned about some of those things. And it's something that it can be enforced on any use in the property, any use in the township, including, your house, anyone's house. So these are specific standards for specific acts that are prohibited during certain times of the day. Playing loud music is one of them. It can be heard past the property boundary. And there's also sort of the catch-all maximum decibel level. So the noise ordinance is really the way that that can be handled. And the chief is here and he's hearing your concerns, and it's something that the noise complaints go to the police. Is that correct, Shelby? Yes.
And then in terms of deliveries and the noise that the gas trucks bring, does that qualify under the ordinance?
There are prohibitions about times of deliveries being made from unloading and loading of trucks. Yes, that accounts for that.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman. Is there anyone else with a question? Mr. Benny?
Hi, Jill DeBenny, 930 South High Street. First, I wanted to say it was encouraging tonight to hear some of the changes. The berm was and still is a bit of a concern for me, which leads me to my first question. I was fortunate enough to have a discussion with some of the Wawa folks and had just was able to physically go over there. I'm a visual person, so I need to stand there and see. And one thing that I did not realize, and again, I'm not sure anything can be done about it, right now, the way that the patio for Timothy's is, it's at a 7 o'clock. Everything is shifting upon being physically over there and going to be more of a 5 o'clock. And so all the gas pumps, and I don't know if the board realizes this, and it's okay if you don't, literally it's going to shift and it's facing my house. So the concern for me is when a vehicle, like an SUV, a camper, like an RV, anything that's not at a car level, with the berm and possible shrubbery for some screening, my concern is when you're pulling into those pumps, you're facing my house. And I didn't realize that until, I thought it was going to be kind of the way it is now, where when I stand at my front door, everything's kind of over here, but it's literally going to be, it's kind of shifted. I didn't know if the board was aware of all of that shifting. That's pretty significant, the canopy and all the pumps. It's a concern.
So isn't the landscaping berm and the type of landscaping that's proposed, I mean, I know at installation it's not going to be at full maturity, but I think that was the purpose of the landscaping, and that was something that the settlement agreement required. So I guess I'm looking to Alex to confirm if you believe that the issue that she's raising will be addressed through the berming and the landscaping.
Yep. Sorry, I got it.
No, you're fine.
I'm used to the mic as well. Yep. So yes, so the landscaping and the green space here, will provide a buffer along the street. But I mean, one thing to note, if you zoom in on this area, presently there are parking spaces right along the right-of-way line. There's like 0 distance between the right-of-way and this. So honestly, this is going to be a much better condition in the fact that you've got distance between the right-of-way and the edge of the paving, where right now vehicles can pull up, park right at the right-of-way along the street line.
Yeah. So, but right now, where the parking, those spaces are, none of them are facing my house. They face perpendicular straight out to the street. They're not facing my home. So I just wanted the board to be aware of it, because honestly, until I physically stood there, I didn't know that it was literally shifting and turning directly at my home. So just wanted the board to be aware of that. The berm, albeit, is nice to hear this evening. Can you remind me, I thought I wrote down, you said 18 to 20 inches?
24. 18 to 24.
And then will it be like just little like hedges, or can we get some sort of vertical, can that be something that we could discuss as far as some vertical
I think
trees?
there's a detail on the landscaping. I don't know what it is, but they have a detailed landscaping plan that tells you exactly what the mix of vegetation that's going to be planted there is.
Okay, because I didn't see that as far as for the, because I didn't even know about the berm till tonight. I mean, I knew it was talked about, but I do see trees, but they're throughout the, I did read trees, but they're kind of throughout the property, not so much.
Alex, you're in a position to talk specifically about what's along the front of the property there in terms of landscaping, whether it's the shrubs and the mix of deciduous and conifer.
Because I know initially there was a concern, you know, for the safety and visibility of the Wawa, and I respect that. But then I also kind of want to shift it back to, I want it to be so that it's.
Well, the intention of the berm, we mentioned this during the actual conditional use here, and the intention is to both provide a better shield from property owners across the other side of High Street, like yourself, and to allow the green space that's been provided there. The intention is to provide those plantings to give you, not only an aesthetic look there, but to shield the property owners from the view of the actual gas pumps in the facility itself, as well as to more effectively delineate the fact that right now when you come off that off ramp, it looks like you turn right over the curb and go right into the property. So this gives you a much better delineation between you have to go further up High Street to come into this property. It's a safety thing. You're not having people walking along the edge of the road like they could do today if they parked there at Timothy's and got out and someone was hurtling down that 202 ramp. So it serves both the safety need, and it also, I believe, Alex will explain the design, give us a barrier to prevent the kind of issues you're talking about to the degree possible. I mean, I'm not sure where the headlights of a vehicle will be relative to the berm height and the position of these shrubs and trees, but I'm assuming it's going to be fairly effective in preventing that problem. So, Alex, tell me I'm wrong or right.
No. So the berm just adds a bit more height to the design. So what's proposed along here now is 116 shrubs that are 3 to 4 feet in height, along with another 18 trees that are intermixed with that design, and then the berming that will be worked in throughout that green space.
So just to be clear, Alex, the intention is for the berm and the shrubs to be worked together, and the berm's here and the shrubs are sunk down below the berm.
And the landscape berm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Don't worry, just 2 more questions. The deliveries, I know you spoke a little bit about it, our solicitor here, Kristen, about how there's ordinances and such, and I understand that. But does Wawa have certain circumstances where they can, so I guess my question is, can those delivery times be, I mean, this is kind of a situation where there's quite a bit of homes right there. Is there any way to tweak that for the homeowners, or is that not, how does that work? Or is it more like about the ordinance and then kind of moving on that?
I mean, we do have sites where we do have our deliveries are tweaked. We do have to meet township regulations and ordinances for deliveries. The challenge becomes, though, is a lot of times with our core market, which we're in here, we have a lot of our stores around the area, our deliveries, we try to have less trucks and vehicles on the road. So we try to do deliveries to multiple stores with as the same truck. So that has a delivery process that we go in. Now we try to avoid, as much as possible, the late night, the midnight to, I'd say 5 o'clock. But we also, because of our business, we do have certain things like our fresh channel, which is like the fresh, you have the milks, the dairy items, the juices, the donuts, the things that have to come fresh to the store. We have to get those deliveries very early in the morning, which are, usually in that 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock time frame. Because of that, we want to have those fresh products for our customers when they come in for the morning rush, which usually starts around 5:30, 6 o'clock. It's a challenge to try to tweak it. Trust me, we would love to be able to help in any way to manage, the timing of these trucks. I mean, when we do these designs for these sites, like for the example, this site is a perfect example. We don't have our site where our trucks have to back into a lot of these sites. Our existing legacy store, because it does not have the ability to navigate around it, that store, the deliveries is a challenge for us. It's actually even to a certain degree, a rather unsafe condition for our deliveries. This store allows us to pull up, for instance, into our loading zone going forward. There is not a backup alarm. These are things that we're trying to do with our new stores where we have, try to recognize that. Our trash enclosures, where we have like a trash compactor in there. The number of decibels, even though it's low, we encompass it completely surrounded by a block wall, which helps on the sound and everything else. And on this particular site, it's on the opposite side of the store, along the highway, which already has a noise amount to it. So, I mean, just in general, like we try to manage where we can. We'd like to see if we can help out where we can. We have certain things that we try to do as our business. I think we do a pretty good job at it. Like, for instance, our trash pickup times are usually not in the overnight hours or in the late evening hours. We recognize that because of the noise associated with those pickups. So I think we do a pretty good job of managing as best we can for the communities of the timing that we bring our trucks out. We try to avoid where we can, the overnights, because we do recognize that sometimes it is that, but also a lot of times the deliveries come in late because our third shift workers, that's the time when we stock our store, because that's when there's least number of people in our stores. So there's that aspect to our business that we try to manage as best as we can.
Because we can't mow our grass before, a certain time, so I just wanted to make sure, I just...
Well, they have to comply with the noise ordinance. If they're coming in and creating louder than 65 decibels at 4 in the morning, we can cite them for violations.
Right.
But if you're mowing your grass at 4 in the morning,
it's just
it's a
hard,
problem.
and I hope I can speak for a lot of you sitting here. I don't know how to measure desk, you know what I'm saying? So if I'm sleeping at 4, it's 4 in the morning and I'm sleeping and we're delivering pastries, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's just a concern.
The provision for deliveries isn't, there's a general provision for decibels, but the provision for deliveries is not tied to a decibel level specifically in the code. It sets an hour parameter at 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. except for trash, which is 6 to 9 p.m., 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And as long as it's clearly audible across the property line, that would be a violation. I can tell you we have enforced that before.
Okay.
Jill, you said you had another question?
Yeah, I just have one more question. I don't remember what day it was. We just had like a supercell storm a few days ago. Can't remember. I have a pretty scary video that I sat out with PennDOT and had them look at as I had to move my vehicle. PennDOT is been aware of the situation. They own, and again, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, that little triangle piece on the other side of the off-ramp, which is between the shopping center and it's a commercial house, but it's like accountants and stuff there. You know where I'm talking? There's a tiny little, it almost looks like a piece of pie. That's PennDOT, right?
Right here in the bottom corner.
Yes, exactly. And they are well aware of the 3 storm drains. 2 are yours. 1 at the corner of Yorktown, 1 further down closer to my house, and then there's 1 in front of my house, which is PennDOT. They are aware that all of those feed in, including the one south by the overpass. They all feed into the one in front of my house and go perpendicular to that tiny little piece of pie. They readily admit that when it gets there, it has nowhere to go. So I just want the board to be aware that this has been 20 plus years of me living there and it being a problem. My concern is when all of this is happening, I think it's important that we know that little pie piece situation because it is going to be, it should be addressed. And if we're doing storm drain in the far corner to hopefully help the folks on the other end. I mean, this is all a part of that. It's directly on the other side of the off-ramp. PennDOT was out there, they admitted, they saw it, they told me to my face, yeah, we can't see any daylight. The pipe was replaced 2 years ago. So either the pipe was compromised, or it's just the fact that there's nowhere for it to go when it goes over there. And they just, you know, the irony, it seems like it's a perfect storm. They were just there and they cleared a lot of debris. What they do, they go around and they clear around the off-ramps for visibility. And I often wonder when they do that, how much of that then goes down in clogs, right, those openings. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but I just want the board and anyone else here to know that it's an ongoing problem. And if we're looking at traffic and storm drain management and a shopping center, it's all right there. So I just ask that you guys keep that in mind. I'm doing what I can with PennDOT, but it's on one person, you know?
Let's see what Brian has to say.
So I'm going to look at Christie shaking his head. Yes, he knows what I'm going to say because we work together enough. But PennDOT is going to weigh in on when they redo this intersection. They also have to adjust stormwater for PennDOT when they do the intersection plans, and that's a process. That's part of the highway action process.
And that's why I'm just trying to be a little birdie to be like, hey, don't forget about the little pie piece over by Jill's house because it's all part of it.
We're well aware of the stormwater issues out there, and that's going to be raised through PennDOT. So.
This is the traffic engineer, so he's heard what you said, or he's writing notes?
Yeah, this is our township traffic engineer right here. He works for the township, and their engineer's back here. And that, when they redo the intersection, PennDOT's also going to be looking at stormwater as part of the intersection.
Okay. I mean, that's all I have, guys. I know you probably thought I had 59 questions, but I don't. So.
Thank you, Jill. Is there anyone else with a question or comment? I just want to read something that was documented as a discussion as part of a February 10th meeting with PennDOT. Mr. Williams was there as well as Mr. DiMartino, I believe. This is just Mr. Williams' notes. During the February 10th, 2025 meeting with PennDOT, PennDOT's consultant provided an overview of the planned US Route 202 South High Street interchange improvements. The interchange improvement alternatives include relocation of the Route 202 southbound off-ramp to a new location that is further south of the Parkway Shopping Center driveway. With relocation of the Route 202 southbound off-ramp, it is possible to further improve the shopping center driveway, and as such, the PennDOT project is also evaluating a solution to physically realign the parking shopping center driveway as part of a four-way intersection. It did state that this project anticipates construction in around 2030. So it's TBD, but we're in 2025 now. This process has been 2 years. It's going to be another year before this thing is fully built. So 2030 will be here before we know it, and that could well be, if this PennDOT project goes ahead, that could well alleviate some of these issues that have been raised. Okay, so is there last chance for comment? Yes, Doug?
Hi, Doug White, West Goshen. I just want to say I think the Board of Supervisors did the best they could with guiding this process. Wawa has a long history in this township, and we've had to deal with a lot of these issues. And another thing, I appreciate all the residents having their concerns, but nothing's more certain than change. And when you buy a house, there's going to be change. And I also want to thank John for you on your questions about the pedestrian safety. Wawa is pretty good about that, with all the bollards all around the stores. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Doug. Is there anyone else with a comment? Is there any final issues with the board? Okay, then I am going to make a motion to approve resolution number 21, 2025, which is to grant preliminary final land development plan to redevelop the existing shopping center known as the Parkway Shopping Center located at 99 South High Street, alongside all the conditions that we've described as part of this resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any public comment or questions about the motion? Okay, then we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for that process.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too. Very good. We're ready to move on to agenda item number 6, which is the discussion on possible approval of resolution number 22, 2025, revising the representation for West Goshen Township on the Chester County Tax Collection Committee. Chris, would you like to just introduce this, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So before the board this evening is proposed resolution number 22-2025. This resolution would update the representation for the township on the Chester County Tax Collection Committee pursuant to Act 32 of 2008. Full disclosure, I thought we updated this information a few years ago, but I went back and looked through the records and it was not completed, and the Tax Collection Committee did contact me about that, even though I have been appointed as a board member. Chester County Tax Collection Committee oversees the collection and distribution of earned income and local services taxes collected in Chester County pursuant to Act 32 of 2008. And as previously noted, it was brought to my attention that the information that they had on file was outdated. And so the resolution before the board would appoint the following delegates for the township. Myself as the primary voting delegate. The first alternate voting member would be our Finance Director, Christine Riffey, and the second alternate voting member would be our Assistant Finance Director, Jennifer Latzer.
Thanks, Chris. I have a question. What kind of issues come up that require a vote on this body?
Reviewing the audit, accepting certain financing documents. They don't meet on a monthly basis. They meet on like a bi-monthly basis, and typically the meetings have been held virtually. They have financial reports that are available on their website. I don't know how up to date they are, but it's mostly like audits and reviewing collection information.
Okay. Any other questions for Chris? Is a board member willing to make a motion to approve resolution number 22, 2025?
I'll make that motion.
I will second. Is there any board comments or questions on the motion? Is there any public comments or questions? Okay, then we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Thanks, Chris. Agenda item number 7 is a proposal, discussion regarding proposals for the installation of 2 electric vehicle charging stations for the administration parking area that has been allocated in the 2025 budget. Chris, do you want to give us a background on this, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So before the board this evening is discussion regarding the installation of 2 electric vehicle charging stations in the administration parking area of the township's municipal complex. In 2024, the township completed an infrastructure expansion project in preparation for conversion of the fleet to more electric vehicles. As part of the 2025 budget, the township allocated $22,000 for the installation of 2 electric vehicle charging stations for the administration parking area. That was allocated in the township's capital reserve fund. During the 2025 budget review, the board indicated a desire to look at alternative options to ChargePoint, which is the vendor that's currently utilized for all the charging stations that are in the complex. Mike Kakovo, our Assistant Public Works Director, researched vendors through CoStars and received a proposal from Coral EV. I'll note for the board's information, he contacted three alternate vendors through CoStars, and Coral was the only one who responded. In order to make a comparison, Mr. Kakovo also received a proposal from National E-Solutions, which is the vendor that provides the ChargePoint stations, and they provided proposals, one with installation and one without installation. So I provided both of those for the board's information to see the difference. Recently, in speaking with Mr. Kakovo, we believe that it would be beneficial to continue with ChargePoint. While we understand and recognize the board's desire to look at other options, it will maintain uniformity with the municipal complex, both from an aesthetic and operational standpoint. And we've had no issues with our relationship with them. We've had great success with their customer service. Additionally, we discussed if it was necessary to proceed forward with 2 at this time. And currently the administrative fleet only has 1 electric vehicle in it. And we don't think proceeding forward with 2 at this time would be necessary. So in reviewing the 10-year capital plan, we're recommending just going with 1 at this time, and there's only 1 vehicle scheduled for replacement in 2026 in the 10-year capital plan, and that may get adjusted as the township begins the budget process, because a lot of times when we begin the capital budgeting process, we'll speak to our lead mechanic, John Weddy, and we may shift certain vehicles down the line.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Questions from the board?
Yeah, the proposal you received from National Solutions, which are one with the charge point product. It's listed for a 30 amp rating, and that's a very low rating, quite frankly. It's from the 7.2 kW charger, and those things take forever in order to charge up a vehicle. If we do go with the charge point, get one of a higher amperage, that will give us a higher kW output.
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe that these were spec'd off of what we've purchased with all the other charging stations for the complex.
Well, that's, I guess, part of the problem, like the one we got in front of the maintenance building there, that was installed several years ago. It's just a very slow charger. I mean, you hook it up and you only get like 3 miles or something like that per hour. I mean, it's very slow. What I'm saying is, and I'm sure they do have that. ChargePoint would have a product which could put out a much higher amperage, higher kW, which would be a faster charge.
I can have my comment for that.
Okay.
Okay, that seems critical to me to make a decision on that before we authorize any purchase, so we may have to defer this until Mike's be able to get back with a revised quote.
I think the real decision the real question before the board is, are we continuing with ChargePoint or going with another supplier? And then we can kind of build off of there.
Yeah.
Because I know that because there was discussion during the budget process about going with another provider.
Mm-hmm. But it looks like the staff, Mike, yourself, are comfortable with staying with ChargePoint.
Very much.
Because of what, the customer service experience with them, or?
We've had very good customer service experience with them. Their dashboard, their online dashboard that we use to kind of like navigate and download information is very easy to utilize. We've had no issues with them. We had one of them where we had a failure with a motherboard and it was replaced very quickly.
Okay.
I just got myself an electric vehicle, and ChargePoint is ubiquitous. I mean, they're all over. So, I mean, I know there's some issues with the company, but, you know, there's plenty of these charging stations out there with ChargePoints. Yeah. They're running well.
Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, the Carl EV quote did not include installation?
I don't believe so. Unfortunately, for some reason, my computer has slowed down considerably, so I can't really go back and look at it.
Do we have any idea how much installation would be?
Nate, the third item down, it says installation, provision, and commissioning on their price quote.
Thank you.
Now, their software is 3 years. I think
ChargePoint is 5. ChargePoint provides a 5-year warranty and maintenance with the installation. So that's part of the reason for the differentiation in price.
And also, would you guys consider reaching out to Hobbs Electric, who did the original installation of all the charging?
I spoke with Mike first thing Monday morning when I got in about that. So he had a call into them. I've been out the last couple of days, so I haven't had a chance to catch up with them.
They had a good deal. We have to check that.
We just need to have an electrician run wiring from the panel through the conduit that was installed. So we have one price, and I asked him to get another price for a comparable.
Okay.
Okay, so Chris, do you have suggestions what you'd like the board to do this evening? Let's see, I'm hearing that the board feels comfortable with ChargePoint.
If we go with assuming the price, so the budget was $22,000, so assuming that the price, we cut the price in half with one charging station, which I think would be the right thing to do, we'd be looking at, and Mike has told me we typically haven't had the National E-Solutions do the actual installation. We run the wiring, connect everything, and then they program everything on the back end to make it operational. So we'd be looking at that $27,000 quote. So cut that in half, roughly $14,000 plus the electricity cost. It wouldn't technically need to come back to the board because it's allocated below the bidding threshold and through co-stars. So the real question is sticking with co-stars versus going with another vendor.
Okay.
Yeah, sticking with ChargePoint or going with another vendor, I apologize.
Well, I'm comfortable with sticking with ChargePoint and purchasing one installation within the allotted budget amount. I do think we should have it installed not by ChargePoint, but by another electrician. And we do, you know, we need to just resolve this issue about the charging capacity for the size of unit we're going to get.
So if the board would be amenable to this, I'll talk to Mike, go back and get tell them we only want to do one at this time, ask for a higher amperage for quicker charging, and assuming that's within the budget, we'll proceed forward. If it exceeds the budget, we'll bring it back before the board.
That would be fine with me. Does the board, any other board members object to that approach?
I just have one comment. I don't know if the plan for the what the layout plan, where all these connections were made to the buildings, of what amperage was assumed per each charging station in the overall design with Keystone and Carroll.
I can have Mike look at
So
that.
we need to look into that to make sure that if we put in a 48, do we take out the availability, put in another one later?
Yeah.
Down the road. So that, I don't know what
I
we
mean,
assumed as the connections
Yeah.
in that master plan.
So we need to look at the master plan. There were a lot of connections in that master plan. So to be perfectly honest, if we went with the 48 here, it means that we can only get 10 and not 11 or whatever it would be ultimately. That would be fine. I trust Mike to look at that and just provide an email to the board through you, Chris, around the way forward with it, once he gets revised numbers. Okay, so based on that, and since it's within the budget, we don't need a motion, am I right?
No, there wouldn't need to be any action by the board, but again, if we get the price back and overall it's going to exceed the budget, we will bring that back before the board.
All right, sounds good. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, discussion and possible awarding of the bid for the North Hill Storm Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Chris.
Brian, do you mind taking this? My computer crashed.
I can do it, Brian.
No, it's fine. I was just bringing up a PDF here. Just let me get together the right one here. Give me 1 second. So, give me 1 second. So, before the board this evening is the awarding of the bid for the North Hill Storm Sewer Rehabilitation Project. The bids were opened by Carroll Engineering on May 7th, 2025. The township received 8 bids for the project. The board is aware that the bid included a base bid and 3 potential alternative bid options. The base bids were as follows. Wexcon Incorporated was the low bidder at $554,555. To the high bid, which is Dolly Construction Corporation, which was $991,247. The parent low bidder is Wexcon. While it had not completed work on a township project before, they have done work for the sewer authority, and they've had, and the sewer authority, in conversation with Mike Moffat, has had good experience with them. Regarding the alternative bid options, Chris Peterson with Carroll Engineering recommends awarding alternate B, which would increase the total cost of the project to $582,292. Alternate B is the extension of a storm sewer along West Penn Drive with 3 additional 2-by-2-foot inlets. I discussed this with Chris, and I agree with this recommendation because this would be beneficial in future connection to this system and for future projects. So that's what this alternate was for.
Brian, can you just explain that a little bit more? Because going along West Penn Street, what connections would add to that extension versus be coming from other directions within the development?
That's why I was getting this up. The extension runs to towards the north, towards North Penn Drive.
Yeah.
So if another phase does work in North Penn, we can connect to the end of that.
And it would not create a capacity issue with the size of land we've designed to go.
That was the reason we added that as an alternate, to allow us to, because we're going to be, this whole area is going to be impacted with the development, with the relocation of the 101 and what we're doing by doing an extension with some inlets. We basically get this cleaned up at once, and then we don't have to come back again.
Okay, and the size of that line, the main line that we're doing on this project, has capacity to handle additional flow potentially from North Penn Street?
Yes.
Thank you. Keep going.
So yes, I agree with this recommendation. The township has allocated $500,000 for this project in the 2025 budget. However, in 2023, the township was awarded a $424,998 grant from the Department of Community and Economic Development for this project. So, discussing the alternates, we discussed that the base bid was going to be the stilling basin here at the bottom of the hill adjacent to the pond or the lake. So in discussing the bidding with Chris Peterson, when we set the bid up, we felt it was more advantageous to the cost of the project to make that an alternate and make the water quality structure here the base bid. Because this, in Chris's opinion, based upon the mock-up, that was a substantial cost. And he felt that if we made that the base bid and an alternate, we wouldn't get much of a deduct in the actual pricing. So to get the better pricing, him and I, with working with Chris, we decided to make this an alternate. I believe that was alternate C on the plan. And then we have this here, the water quality structure was the base bid. This extension was an alternate, and then also we have an alternate to regrade and fill in the lower half of the swell behind the shed, is the best way to term it. The pricing for that came in well above what we were expecting, and that would push the project to well over $650,000. So at this point, we're recommending base bid and the alternate for the pipe because it's more advantageous to us and it's going to save us additional work in the future.
Okay, so the base bid plus alternate B raises the total cost to $582,292,
yes,
less the grant, which was $424,998. So the cost to the town, the net cost for the project construction phase of the township would be, I'm trying to find my calculator.
Roughly 140, roughly 140,000.
140,000. So that is within the budgeted amount we have for this year.
The net, yes.
The net.
And the other thing to keep in mind is Chris had put in an allocation for rock removal. So if there's less rock that needs to be removed, that'll ultimately bring down the price.
And that's in the bid price right now,
yes,
right? Okay, but we don't know. It could go the other way.
It could go the other way, yes, that is very possible.
Yes, we estimated 300 cubic yards of rock. It's a lot.
Okay.
We don't know until they start digging that deep how much rock we're going to get. Because there's some deep excavations going on for this project.
Okay.
I want to just...
Can you put that rock in the building there?
That's...
Well, the base bid for that was over $40,000, I believe, right, Ryan? Alternative
Yeah,
C.
46, it was $47,000 was the cost to rip wrap, to line that swell. It was $47,000 in our bid.
But again, there's such a variation on these bids. So other bidders bid like $29,000. One was $14,000 for that. So they are all over the place.
You can't fix the match, right?
No.
You can't pick the low bid from different bids.
Yes, it's a little bit overall. Their bid for that swell was $47,000.
Well, my question is this, we have $500,000 in the budget for this year for this project, of which we're going to get grant money to offset that. And the way I figure it, we have $370,000 remaining in the budget, for this particular project. Why could we not also do A and C as well? They both seem to be.
We don't need A if we're doing the base bid, because the water quality structure.
So that's already included in
the water quality structure we're proposing at the edge of the road replaces the forebay here. And by replacing the forebay, we take off, we alleviate the maintenance responsibility from North Hill.
Right.
So the civic position
would
maintain this.
So 108 becomes obsolete or unused.
Yes.
But alternate C though would still be valuable to do that, correct?
If the board decides they want to spend the additional money.
$46,000, which we have $370,000 remaining in the budget.
Well, the budget is, because we're out of pocket that $500,000, we already knew we were going to get the reimbursement from the grant. But within this year, for cash flow purposes, we're going to spend $580,000, and the grant reimbursement may fall into 26 before
It absolutely will fall into 26.
I mean, all along we said that the board's position was that we were willing to spend this $140,000, $50,000, $60,000 on this improvement on the assumption that we got the grant. We did get the grant, and that's where we are today. The actual base bid was pretty close to our hoped for construction cost for the project. Am I right, Chris?
The base bid was $554,550, so about 10% higher than what was estimated originally when we did the grant application.
Well,
but not outlandish though.
I'm saying we still have sufficient money and stuff available to be able to do, you know, that work on, that would, alternate C would entail. I understand it exceeds the $500,000, but we're gonna do that anyway.
Alternate C is not aiding the development overall. It's specific to flow on civic association property.
It's specific to just correcting what was
there now, correct?
The current cut, as you, for lack of a term, follows the pipe and then turns, and you can see all these it comes this way. By us picking up all the water and directing it down, that we're filling into this point here where the collapsed and removing the collapsed concrete.
And then from there on down.
From down, we don't have any proposal to do anything. Another concern we have is getting in there to actually do the swale. One of the contractors who came out for the sidewalk said they got to take down all those trees to be able to do the work. So all the trees along the swale, they can't get in there and fill it without taking the trees down. And we're not proposing the civilization asked us to save all the mature trees. And one of the guys said was, I can't get in there without taking these trees down.
How deep is that swale now? Do you have any idea? But we walked it down. There was some areas that was almost 8 feet deep.
The depth is up here. Once it comes down behind the shed and through those trees, it's not near as deep. But the concern from the contractors when I had the site open so they could go look at it was, I had 3 people ask me, can we take these trees down? And the answer was no. So.
Well, I'm just concerned that that's a safety hazard, you know, having that basically big ditch there.
Well, we're filling it to this point right here, which is where all the deepest point of the cut is where we're all filling in. All that's going to be regraded and stabilized.
Okay, well, that's certainly.
This whole area here, and that's where the collapsed concrete is. This area here has opened up over the years because of the volume of water getting down. We're picking up and removing so much of the water that's coming down through there that, by what we're doing. My concern was if we get into this and what kind of impact we're going to have to the trees. When we met with the Civic Association, when we laid this out and laid this out, they were adamant about saving all the mature trees that were there.
If it's possible.
Yes.
You know,
Well,
we weren't sure if you could access it from the other side.
No, because of the way it is, the 2 contractors have said to me when we were out that day for the site, where they could come out and look at the site, we had 6 or 8 come out that day, that they don't know how they could do that work without impacting those trees.
I guess my point would be that once this source of the creation of this gully is gone by the new project, the actual flow that would reach this existing remaining shallow gully is going to be small. It's just the rainfall that falls within that civic association.
Yes.
We're not going to have
There's
this
a little
gushing
bit,
going
yes.
down there anymore.
Right.
And it should stabilize and hopefully grass grow in or whatever else. Because it won't have the velocity of
water
whatever
crashing
cubic feet
down
crashing down there is today.
Yes.
So I think, to me, the $46,000 would be, in my opinion, better spent elsewhere in this township on other stormwater projects. Maybe even phase 2 of the North Hills project that we're planning to apply for a grant for. Other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that Brian is recognized. I know I've said this before, he put in a lot of hard work on this project for meetings with the residents and the Civic Association, and so did Chris Peterson, and residents with contractors. So, and working through all the alternative options and the bid specs. So Brian did a great job on putting everything together, and thank you to the Civic Association and to the residents for working with us through this whole process.
I think it's been a great project overall so far.
Can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely. Come on up, Jen.
Hi. Just state my name is Jen Roth. I'm at 971 North Penn, and I was the president of the North Hill Civic Association for about 12 years. And you know, during that time, worked extensively with the township, not just on this, but on other stormwater issues we've had. And I just wanted to express our deepest gratitude to everyone on the board for everything in the township in general, for working with us and for you know, being such great partners. You know, the first houses in our neighborhood were built back in the 1940s, if not 30s. You know, at that point, you know, we just didn't know what was in the future, right? And what was in store for us in terms of, you know, future development in the township and, you know, what the storms were going to be like. We just didn't know. And so, you know, to be so willing to address like the changes that we're seeing and being so willing to work with us. You know, like, you know, we voted for you and we're just, you know, really, really grateful that you're working so hard for us and that you've spent all this time and all these resources on us. You went up to bat for us with the grant. And, you know, we're just really, really appreciative of everything that you've done. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for your comments, much appreciated.
It's nice to get some nice comments.
Yeah, and I want that in the record, that we appreciate you and everything that you've been doing for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, it's been a journey. It's been 4 years, I think, since originally went out to visit the site for the first time. I forget whether it's the things. Probably was. So,
we got a tour.
So hopefully by November of 25 it'll be complete and we'll be on to other things. So very good. So at this point I will make a motion to approve the base bid from Wexcon Inc. in the amount of $554,550 together with the alternate B in the amount of $27,742 for the North Hill Storm Sewer Rehabilitation
I second that.
Thank you, Tina. Is there any board comments or questions on the motion? Is there any public comments or questions? Very good, we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it passes 4-0. We're on to agenda item number 9, which is discussion and possible awarding of the 2025 pavement marking bid. And that is with Chief Carroll, with Chris.
Mr. Chairman, before the board this evening are the bid results for the 2025 pavement marking project. The bids were advertised in the April 24th, 2025 and May 1st, 2025 editions of the Daily Local News. Bids were opened on May 15th, 2025. We received one bidder from Alpha Space Control in the amount of $214,839.64. This is a cooperative bid project that's shared amongst several municipalities in the area. They are West Goshen Township, East Goshen Township, Westtown Township, Euclid Township, Upper Euclid Township, Westchester Borough, and West Whiteland Township. I will note that that total bid amount is approximately $2,000 more than last year, so relatively comparable. As in the past, each municipality will be billed based on their proportionate share of the work completed, and then I provided the last 5 years in the memo that was included in this evening's packet showing what our proportionate share was, and the average over the last 5 years for the township was $66,545. So based on that, we recommend awarding the bid to Alpha Space Control.
So we expect, given it's a similar bid amount, I don't know if the mileage is similar to what we, the amount of pavement marking is similar to what we did last year, but we're going to be net to us in the kind of 65 to 70 range is expected.
I would anticipate that.
Okay. The other municipalities that participate in this, they have seen this bid and
they worked with Mark as far as I know.
Okay, and there's no comments or objections from them on awarding it?
As far as I know, there are not. I know he reached out. This has actually expanded since I've gotten here, because I know he reached out to a couple other municipalities.
Well, that's a good thing. Yeah, I always have to ask the question, is there only one company interested in this work?
We put it out and there's only one. This is the primary company that's used in this area. I've utilized this company in Malvern before, when I was in Malvern previously.
Got it locked up. All right, any other questions from the board?
Well, just for the record, just to confirm, West Goshen Township, we will pay this bill, correct? And then we get reimbursed from the other townships.
No, they bill each municipality for their proportionate share. I thought that originally, and then I pulled the information from our finance software, and we're just, the amount that's in there is what we were actually billed from.
So they make the determination what the percentage would be for each township, based upon, I guess, the number of miles they have to pay with them.
I believe, and Mark would know much better than I would, I believe they submit each municipality will submit the quantities to him, so he has like an idea on what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
So is there a true up then at the end if it changes a little bit between the submission of, hey, we need this, and then the actual work that gets done is a little bit more or less than what they originally thought?
I can't, I'm not 100% sure, so I can't answer that question. But I would assume there would be, but I can't answer that definitively.
Okay, so just one other question. So the police traffic safety committee came up about a couple of spots that might benefit from putting stop lines in the road.
Okay.
Is that the kind of thing we would just tack on to the work that's being done and pay proportionately, or is it something that we would manage entirely separately from this contract?
That might be something we can do in-house,
Yeah.
but if you send that to me, I can ask Mark, I'd be happy to speak to him.
Yeah. Okay. All right, any
I'll
other
make a
questions?
motion that we approve the only bidder. We don't have much choice.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve the bid in $214,839.64 to Alpha Space Control, and there's been a second from Nate. Is there any public comments or questions? Okay, then we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. All right, we'll move on to reports for April 2025, and we start with the police report presented by Chief Michael Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report from the Police Department for April 2025. We responded to 2,178 calls for service. 37 of those were alarms, and 5 of those alarms were found invalid. We responded to 72 accidents, 9 of which were reportable accidents, and drove a total of 20,744 miles. We performed extra traffic enforcement on Grove Road, Aram Avenue, and Taylor's Mill Road, Rosary Lane, Airport Road, and South High Street, Christina Lane, North Five Points Road, and Baylor Pike. And along with our normal monthly trainings, we completed or continued to complete our department-wide CPR and emergency vehicle operation training. Detective Edwards and Officer Riley attended a less lethal instructor course. Officers DeLeon, Graham, and Walsh attended honor guard training. Officer Grider attended pistol manipulation for deadly force encounters training. Sergeant Holman attended Valor Survival Training. Officer DeLeon attended an unmanned aerial vehicle training. Officers Burnt and Grider attended Crisis Intervention Training. Officer Kenna attended Traffic Control Drug Interdiction Training. And Officer DeLeon attended Criminal Interdiction Training. Going back to the alarms for the month, one of those was at the highest fine rate. It was the 6th violation for that person, and one was at the second highest, 5th violation.
Well, if you don't mind, what was the property that was at 6 violations as of the end of April?
I would have to guess, because the month doesn't have all of them, but I'm pretty sure it's a local bank.
Okay.
And for our assist to and assist from, so we received 25 assists from other departments and performed 25 assists to other departments, and the assists to other departments totaled just over 32 hours.
Anything trending this year that's different on assist to or from as of the first 4 months of the year?
No, pretty steady. We also have scheduled our next Coffee with a Cop, and that is July the 12th at the Artisan Exchange from 10 to 1. And I appreciate the board's understanding that I was a little late today. I was attending the county's recovery court graduation at the county courthouse. That's the report from the police department. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Any questions from the board for the chief?
I have a couple of questions. Can you give us an update on the Mach-E electric vehicle? That's been put in service now, is that correct?
Yep, it's back in service.
And that's being used for?
Juvenile unit.
Juvenile division, okay. And there should be no problems being able to utilize it for that purpose?
I hope not.
How far? Also, the next question I had is, we had some discussion with you the last, actually a couple of months, about the Blue Envelope program. Can you talk about that a little bit, about that, what it is and where the status of it is?
Yeah, it's a program meant for disabled drivers that provides them some information on if they're stopped by the police. It gives them an envelope to put all of the information an officer would ask for, and so it's in one place to kind of help them through that process. It looks like, I had discussions tonight, the County Chiefs of Police Association is going to partner with the county's return order of police and get these envelopes together, get them out to all the police departments in the county.
So in all across the county, this program will be initiated?
Yes.
Sounds good. Great.
Before I mention it to you, was the county aware of this Blue Envelope at all? Or any of the other areas you're working with? Because we're going to partner with them.
No, most people weren't very familiar with it.
They weren't. Okay.
I became aware of that I don't know, through some kind of radio thing I was listening to, but it's quite prevalent in New Jersey, I believe, or it's rolled out in New Jersey.
So some of the places, there are places in Pennsylvania that have it, but not in Chester County. No.
There was a gentleman here a couple of months ago.
That's who I heard from.
Okay. Are we going to kind of reach out to him and see if he can, there's a community that he may be in contact with that would be interested in knowing that
once we get it ready, we're going to reach out in a lot of directions to see how we can get it distributed.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Any public comments or questions for the chief? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the board, agenda item number 11, which is the Board of Supervisors announcements. Before I do, just be aware there are other reports provided by Westchester Fire Company, Goshen Fire and EMS, and Good Fellowship Ambulance that provides the data and statistics for the month of April that are available to everyone. So, Board of Supervisors announcements. Nate?
Sure. April 15th, I attended the America 250 meeting that we attend at East Goshen, planning for the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. 419, I attended the West Goshen Township Easter egg hunt. 424, attended the Historic Commission. 428, attended America 250 on Zoom call. 429, attended the police community discussion. 5.4 through 5.7, attended the PSATS conference. 5.8, attended the Zoom call pertaining to the Thomas Jefferson reenactor and Goshenville 250 celebration. We're hoping to get the actor who portrays Thomas Jefferson that we've had at two of our assemblies here. 514, attended the Streets and Parks Department meeting with Mr. Hellman, Mike Tacavo, and Mark Bartolome. 517, attended the 2025 Sustainability Summit and Expo, along with Mr. Walsh at Westchester University. That's all.
Thanks, Nate. Is there any specific update on the plans for 250, the planning process, where it is with the surrounding municipalities?
Yeah, right now we have a date of, I believe, May 30th, 2025. It's going to be a large gathering at East Goshen Park. There will be a parade. There will be a signing of the Declaration of Independence. There will be a drone and fireworks display along with reenactors, possibly a parade, that sort of thing. Along the way, there's going to be 7 or 8 other events as we lead up to the celebration. Following the Battle of Brandywine and leading up to the Battle of the Clouds and eventually into Valley Forge.
I think you said 25, but you meant 26, right?
Yeah, going into 26, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just want to get a picture for the next year.
And it's going to go into 2027 as well.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Nate. Tina?
A couple of things. April 17th, I went to a GFAC meeting on the budget goals and future plans and worked with the townships on that. April 22nd, we had the SAC meeting. April 26th, I attended the SPCA event at the community park. There was over 1,000 people at the event. Looks like it was very successful and they made a good amount of money. April 28th, we had a meeting with Westchester University. April 29th, we had the police community meeting. On April 30th, I did my quarterly speech at the senior center where they asked very good questions on what's happening in the township. On May 1st, the senior center again had an expo where I had a table and they asked a lot of questions from the community. May 3rd, I did the Arbor Day at Hammond Health Park, cleaned up the trees that we had planted. Of course, we had PSATs this month. On May 10th, I had gone to a dinner at the Elks Lodge, and they gave me an award for being a township supervisor, which to me would have helps recognize all the work and effort that we all do during the year. On May 14th, we had the Police Traffic Community Meeting. I attended. On May 14th, we had the Fire and EMS Coalition meeting. And then on May 15th, I had the COG meeting. And that's it.
Very good, thank you, Tina. John?
On Monday, April 21st, I participated with in the Land Planning Committee meeting, and it's a continuing process of a review of our zoning ordinances. And we discussed several various ordinances, including signs. And on Tuesday, April the 29th, I attended the police community meeting where we discussed what community policing means. Also the task force report on 21st century policing and what the West Goshen Township Police Department is doing to make community policing the model here in the township. On Wednesday, April 30th, I had a curbside meeting with Mark Bartolome, the Public Works Director, also along with Nate Woman, and community residents about concerns of street paving on the awkward work done on Mallard and Somerset roads. And on Sunday, May 4th through Wednesday, May 7th, along with the other supervisors here, attended the PSATS conference. We received a recognition award for best practices in intergovernmental cooperation for our Fire and EMS Coalition. I also attended several workshops there, including EMS in crisis, short-term rental ordinances, EV updates, and zoning law updates. Then on Tuesday, May the 13th, I attended the Planning Commission meeting. On Wednesday, May the 14th, attended the West Goshen Police Department Traffic Committee meeting and discussed several traffic issues, including speed and volume of traffic along Ashbridge Roads and High Street. We requested and we received a traffic study that I've done on High Street now, which would be before the Wawa will be built there in the Parkway Plaza. So it'll be an interesting baseline to look at after the Wawa is in place, what kind of volume and speed has increased as a result. I also met on that day with Mark Bartolome, along with Nate Woman, to discuss several current and future stormwater projects, as well as road paving in the township. And also attended the Fire and EMS Coalition meeting later that night with Tina Maurice Smith. On Saturday, May the 17th, attended the Sustainability Conference and vendor displays at the Westchester University at the Science and Engineering Building. And on Wednesday, May the 21st, today we met with Chief Carroll, along with Tina Maurice Smith and myself, for our monthly liaison meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. I'd like to announce that the board met in executive session on 4/18 and 5/16 to review the 2025 performance management objectives with the township manager. The board met in executive session on the 1st of May to review a legal matter about Greystone Properties and fencing and stormwater easements. The board met in executive session on the 2nd of May to discuss the HR consultant assessment of the township compensation and benefit structure and process. I attended many of the other meetings that have been announced. In addition to those, I attended the pension committee meeting on the 23rd of April and participated in a tour of the wastewater treatment plant hosting Westchester University Environmental Sciences course students, which was very enjoyable. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item number, unless there's any questions for supervisors. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 12, which is the township manager's announcements.
So I have a few announcements this evening. The township offices will be closed on Monday, May 26th in recognition of the Memorial Day holiday. Trash and recycling collection will be adjusted back by 1 day due to the holiday, and information has been posted on the township website about that. In terms of the regional stormwater feasibility study, Carroll Engineering is preparing budget estimates for certain projects outlined in that study. We're hoping to include this in the 2026 budget. And as discussed earlier this evening, we will be looking to do a grant application later this year for the south side of the North Hill development through the local share account program. Those open up in July, and they're typically due around Thanksgiving of each year. The board previously authorized the Cohen Law Group in a coalition with our neighboring municipalities to complete a renewal of the township's franchise agreement with Verizon. The Cohen Law Group completed their franchise fee audit of Verizon's payments to the township under the current agreement, and they found no underpayments were found. So they're going to continue moving forward with the renewal process. As part of this, the board will need to hold what's called a public hearing and comment session, but it's not when the board conducts like a conditional use hearing. It's not like that. It's a requirement under the law to allow residents to come forward and bring forth any issues that they've had with service from Verizon.
Do we have to have, go ahead, John.
Can that be done in a regular board meeting?
It can. They actually recommended that it be done that way. It does have to be advertised as a separate public hearing.
That was my question.
But it can be done. It can. They've sent me an advertisement and a few talking points that I will provide to the board, and they can. But we can do it during a regular meeting. It does not need a stenographer. It does not require a transcript. It doesn't require expert testimony. It's just an advertised opportunity to meet our requirements under the law.
When do we have to have it done by?
They said there's no definitive time frame, but sooner rather than later. I was thinking maybe the first or second meeting in June.
Can we post something on our website or in the e-news? E-news is just about to go out.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it too late for that, or can we squeeze something in about this?
No, we can
squeeze. Select a date and just go with it.
I can squeeze something in with the board like to do January 3rd or the 17th.
June 3rd?
Or June 3rd, I apologize.
You're ready to go.
Right now, so I'm drafting out the June 3rd agenda, there's very, very little on the agenda.
And it's like a 1 week notice for the advertisement, or?
I'll send it off to run tomorrow. I'll send it off to run for, if I get it in tomorrow, it can run in Tuesday's paper, so 7-day advertisement.
Okay.
That should be fine.
Okay.
In terms of the presentation with, from the Transportation Management Association of Chester County about Route 3, we have a meeting on May 29th with representatives from Chester County, from PennDOT, and from East Goshen and West Townships to discuss the improvements along the Route 104 corridor that were presented back at the January meeting for the board. I know John Meisel, who presented here, has met with the other municipalities, and he's proceeding forward with representatives from the county and PennDOT.
According to your report, the response from the other towns that you mentioned was mixed.
Yes, that was.
So where are we going to go with this? I guess this meeting will determine that. Are we going to do this jointly, or is the township going to move unilaterally? That was a rhetorical question, I guess. But,
I think the meetings would be, I think the meeting on the 29th is going to determine the path forward.
Okay.
Can board members participate in that? Is it considered a public meeting or not?
It's not a public meeting. This is just going to be like an internal staff meeting.
Okay.
In terms of the Rosedale Avenue sidewalk project, we've received the easement agreement and the exhibits, and those were provided to the property owner on May 7th for their review. I haven't received a response from them to schedule a time to sign the agreement, but I'm going to follow up with them by the end of this week to see if they have any comments or concerns on what was provided. So it'll be 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks today, so I was going to give her some time.
Okay.
In terms of the Woodlands dedication, we have had our team from the Public Works Department go out twice with the representatives on the Serpentine Barrens. They were out there on May 1st and again on May 19th. And as far as I can tell, they're enjoying learning what's going on with the Serpentine Barrens. And Mark Bertolami has recommended to me as we get closer to dedication, perhaps engaging with Scott Bush, who's their consultant, as like an hourly consultant. So I told him as we get closer to dedication, we'll get a proposal from him, and that can be brought before the board.
I learned from the training when they went out there that they don't go out twice a year, they go out 4 times a year to maintain the barrens. So what we were thinking is may not work and be feasible. And this last one on Monday, they had 2 guys out from Sharon doing the the May spraying. It took they go through about 300 to 400 gallons of herbicide while they're out there. So they have specialized equipment and a trailer with tanks and a little water. They go out there to fill the sprayers and drive sprayers out into the barrens. So it's not just a backpack and a couple gallons. They go through 300 to 400 gallons a time, 3 to 4 times a year.
You probably have to have safety and training.
Well, we have We have 2 staff members that are certified to spray. They're just not sure what to spray out there. And the guys from Chiron are doing it.
What's
They
the
know
name of
what
the company, Brian? So you spell it.
Chiron is doing it, Shearon. That's the company that's doing the spraying for, that's currently out there. We may want to consider engaging them because they have the equipment. I mean, 300 gallons of, we don't have anything to carry 300 gallons out there. So, and we don't have the mechanical, the spray, the mechanical equipment is actually the sprayers that hold it to go out there, and they have a hand spray, and they can drive through the barriers and do it.
They're accessing it from the trails though, right?
They're accessing it through the gate on 322.
Emergency access gate?
Yes.
Because I have problems with the herbicides they're using too, and that's.
Well, it's all licensed and all per the plan that Scott pushed. Scott Bush's plan is very clear about what you can and can't use as far as herbicides.
I understand that, but it's certainly affecting the environment overall.
Plus the intention is to kill these weeds, otherwise the barrens will going to die.
So it's to keep the barrens as the barrens. Osborne 2 is burning, we outlaw burning.
We
We can't burn, so there's no other way to do it but the herbicide, the selective herbicide to.
Is it once or twice a year for the herbicides? 4 times a year, but
That's what Sharon told, that's what Mark and those guys were told, that they came out 4 times a year to do this.
Do we have any idea what the cost is?
We'd have to get a proposal for it.
Maybe it needs it now because it's never been done before, but
No,
once
this is the second or third year of maintenance on it since they've restored it.
we would need to consult with Scott Bush as to whether it's really necessary that frequently.
Yeah, so we're contaminating the environment to save a certain
I don't
With
quite look at it like
herbicides.
that. That's how we get our food.
How big of an area is it? How many acres are we talking?
40.
4 acres?
40.
40 acres?
Yes.
It's roughly 40, the Serpentine Barrens are just under 40 acres of the 162.
Yeah, so it was
That's
two
good.
technicians for an entire day on Monday to just treat them.
Does that sound,
It sounds about right.
Yeah, because if I'm remembering the plans correctly.
Yeah, it's a large, it's not walk around with a backpack and pump it up and spray a few things. It's a full day of work for 2 technicians with specialized equipment.
And then just finally, we have several upcoming community events. The Historic Commission has their cemetery tour, the Greenmont Cemetery Tour on May 30th. Shakespeare in the Park will be held on June 14th in West Goshen Community Park at 6 p.m. for a performance of All's Well That Ends Well, and the rain date for that is June 20th. Next yard waste collection day will be Saturday, June 21st. The summer concert series is going to kick off on June 22nd will be the Chatter Band, and on June 29th is the Sam Stinson Band, and those events are also at West Goshen Community Park in the amphitheater. And then finally, the bus trip for New York on your own will be June 28th. And information on how to register is on the township website. So those are my announcements for this evening.
Well, can you also give us an update on the solar project?
So the solar array project, we had the interconnection on the shutdown and the connection on April 25th. The township's project is in the PICO queue for inspection. I don't have a date yet from Mike on when that inspection is going to occur so that we can activate it and start generating electricity. I've engaged with Witham to complete the filing for the credit under the Inflation Reduction Act, and I have provided them with, except for one check that was just issued today, I have provided them with every piece of documentation I have to date. So they have every contract document, every invoice, everything we have to date, I've uploaded to them. We need the place to complete everything. We need the placed in service date, so when it's actually activated, and then the final payment that'll be issued to Terrasol. I think with the most recent payment, it's 363 out of the 484,000 that was approved.
Is the monitor installed downstairs? That's this week though, right?
I believe so, yes. And we have our project status meeting. We have our next project status meeting Friday morning.
So this time, a month from now, we might be making electricity?
It is contingent on PICO.
Okay. Stay tuned.
But it's, I think that project went very well.
Good. Any other questions for Chris? I want to hear with the question for Chris, Barbara.
Chris, when is the dedication from the park or Princeton?
We don't have a date yet. Brian is still, and he'll go over this during his report, but he's still working through his punch list. We've had a meeting with the developer to go over punch list items, but we do not have a date yet for
Would that
dedication.
be put on the calendar on the website when it happens?
Well, dedication, if the board wants to do a formal dedication, that'd be one thing, but when we talk about dedication, it's conveying the land over to the township, and that will be done at a public meeting, and that hasn't occurred
So a
yet.
different kind of dedication?
Yes.
Correct.
Got it, thanks.
Good question. Any other questions, Chris? Okay, Brian, you're up.
So I will start with some stormwater project announcements. So Basin Road, Chris, the manager, is still working with the property owner trying to get the easement documentation signed. We did have additional correspondence today. Once that easement documentation is signed, we will finalize Louise Carroll will finalize the documents for design and bid package.
Just need one easement, one resident.
So what we need for that is we need a permanent easement and a temporary construction easement. Unfortunately, Brian was away when we met with the property owners, but Chris Peterson, Mark Bertolami, and I met with the property owners. We reviewed the plans with them. They had a couple of comments and changes, and Chris Peterson has addressed all of their concerns, and we sent them revised plans back for their review, and we're just waiting for them to say it's okay, and then we'll have Kristen draw up the easement agreements.
So that's the update on Basin Road. The update on the project behind Aldi and at Barker Park. I had a meeting on May 1st with DEP, Land Studies, and Chris Peterson. That went very well. I do have correspondence from DEP dated May 15th, and then a proposal from Carol dated May 20th to present to you in June, along with the Land Studies proposal. The correspondence from DEP is regarding their acceptance of the project scopes and how it's going to be reviewed and handled by DEP, and about how they look at wetland, how the issue of removing wetland to install more, to create more wetlands is what central office. I got a letter ready to go. Got the proposal from Carol yesterday for subsurface testing on the parcel behind the Aldi. We don't think it's going to be any issues because the plumes from the north, we're going to stay south of the sewer line. So
South of the creek or south?
South of the sewer line. There's a sewer line that runs through the middle of that property.
Why is that going to be determined? What's that relevance to where the plume might be?
Based upon the documentation that I received, it's not a great flyover, but right here is the sewer line. You can see this clearing.
Yeah.
And we're going to be, everything we're doing is going to be down here along the stream. So, and the plume was coming from the north, so we're going to test it, but we don't think it's going to have any issues.
We're going to test only where we're going to do the work.
Yes,
right?
yes.
We're
And we're only
not testing
testing
the whole parcel.
And when you get the proposal next, if your next meeting, you'll see we're only testing 4 feet deep because we don't anticipate any cuts more than 4 feet.
Yeah, test lower. If we're only cutting 4 feet, we need to go a little bit lower just to be sure.
I haven't had a chance to review the proposal that we got yesterday.
You don't want to change further contamination either. Will they take core samples?
I would.
I just got the proposal yesterday afternoon, so I can't give you any details other than I received the proposal I have to review before I present it to you.
So those are the two outstanding questions we gave you to finalize, which is would DEP central office be accepting of the work, and then the other was
Yes.
to make sure we don't, whatever the area we're going to do on this particular parcel is not going to run into
Yes.
a problem.
So I have a proposal which I will review, and it will be in your packet for June 3rd, and then you'll have the proposal again, from the same proposal from Land Studies, and you'll also have the correspondence from DEP.
Okay.
So all those items for your packet.
All right.
So that's that one. So getting back to we had some fun around here on Friday. You've been asking some questions about the Governor's Service Center Basin. Well, Chris Peterson happened to be in town here on Friday while it was raining. And he went out and took a video of, this is the Government Services Center Basin on Friday during the storm, as it's, and you can see how it's functioning. And
When the outfall's over toward, where's the outfall right now? It's right about here, right?
that's the outfall
Is
out
that the
there.
emergency outfall?
No, the emergency's over here.
Okay.
This is the outfall, this is the emergency right there. So that was Friday during the storm.
How long did it retain the water? Do you
Well,
know?
it worked, no, I don't know,
So
but.
you're saying it worked?
Oh, it worked perfect. It worked as designed. And then this is a picture, and then one of the questions I got was it damaged? The only damage they had was some of the plants were still, they were actually planting on Friday, they were putting plants in the ground, and some of the plants in the flats started to float, so they had to grab them and pull them out of the water. But everything in the ground stayed, and this is a picture of this. This is the condition of the basin this morning. This was taken this morning, and there's guys working on it today.
But the water wasn't in there for 3 days or anything?
This was taken this morning, so no, the basin was dry. The basin functioned as designed. So there's that one. And then we have one other issue, so switching to grade.
Sorry, Brian, just back on that project. So have we done a substantial completion walkthrough? Is that why Chris was there?
No, he was out here for, I don't know why he was here on Friday, what he was out here for, but he just happened to be here. He had talked about the issues he saw in town with Montgomery Avenue and everything else we talked about, but I don't know why he was here on Friday.
So they're not submitted for the substantial completion date still down the road a little bit?
The last
I'm
payment
not aware of
was
that.
not for substantial completion, just partial.
Yeah.
Like, it has to vegetate before it's complete. It's not fully vegetated yet.
Okay,
I
so
don't
we're still
know.
working on it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then this is a video of, right next to the circle, this is Aram, this Squalthorpe is this way, this is the circle, and this is their hydrodynamic separator that they put in is right here. And this is during the storm event, Friday, where it's flooding at the top. So I've already sent this to Ray Grahowski, and they're gonna look at it, make sure that that's functioning properly. It should be looking like this with nothing flow at the top. It should not be coming out the top of the structure, so he's aware of it. He was aware of it on Monday when I got this, and they're gonna be taking a look at it. So yes, there was some damage out there. I did go out to the trails on Monday with Andrea looking at the trails from the E&S perspective, so she got an idea for the widths of the bridges and the trail widths and that, because there is areas out there that you can only access by gator. You can't get anything else to it, by the way the trails are constructed. I did notice damage. I let Ray know that there was damage and gave him a week to look at it. I'll be out there, hopefully if we don't have any more rain, and that, I'll be out next week to look at it and do a little punch list. He's aware of that. So that's where we stand. They do have our final comments as far as the dedication space. They've said they've gotten our final comments, so they will address them on the as-built plans. They have not come in yet. We don't have any motion yet on the, other than back and forth with.
We just heard from their attorney today about the deer flyover, and they counted, I think it was 25 deer, I believe.
Yes. Their flyover done on April the 8th was 25 deer.
And they're not going to do any more culling or any more.
Anything else, because our plans would have to be 35 to 40 is the approval, so they're below that threshold.
They counted 25.
What was the date you did it?
April 8th. That just came in today. I think it's just before we review it. So, but the other thing is, have we heard anything more about the dam? Other than back and forth?
We have not. I emailed Senator Comita's office, and they were reaching out to DEP, and I haven't heard anything since
Yes,
then.
and that I think was doing while we were PSATs.
Correct.
So we had some issues with some of this, but part of the issue we still have out at Greystone with some of the complaints I've gotten is the basin's full of water. Yeah, the basin's, but it's still, it's in the temporary condition, so they're not, some of the basins that were filling and potentially overflowing were temporary basins, they aren't permanent basins. So I'm going one by one, doing my research on all on the complaints I got. I think I got 22 complaints from Friday.
Okay. So two questions. So I don't know what the intensity of that storm was and whether this was expected to be able to handle it or not, but
according to the email I got from Ray when I sent him this back, he says that he knows that the system is designed for the 100-year storm. I tried today, I could not find anything that's been posted yet on what the storm event we had. I know it was a mega burst. I've seen anywhere I've heard it's been over 2 inches in a half hour. I heard it was, so I can't find documentation to tell me what storm event it was.
Okay.
That
So
we
does
have
that determine what?
So-
Is that going
so-
to determine whether anything is needed here or not?
Well, by seeing what this is doing, I think that the device is clogged and not clean.
Okay, so that's one potential.
Yeah, it just needs maintenance, and that could be one potential. Second potential is, it's just a storm event that's greater than the device can handle. The device, according to the email I got back from Roy, was sized for the 100-year storm. I can't say yes or no to that because it was installed before I got here.
Okay, then going to the trail washout situation, so he's aware of it.
I hadn't even aware that there was washouts and damage to the trail. That was Monday. He said I have to get a contractor walk it today to verify.
Okay.
I'm going out next week to see if they've done anything, and then I'm going to be issuing another punch list based upon next week.
So let's say they're going to fix it. Let's say the trail's ready for, the park's ready for dedication. All they've done is fix the problem. We take dedication of it, and then a year from now, there's another one of these events. All damage to that trail is now on us to fix, correct?
It's under our maintenance bond.
I believe there's going to be an 18-month maintenance
I
bond.
believe it's 18 months bond.
So at some point in the future, we'll be on us to fix. Is there a more permanent solution to prevent those washouts?
Those are the areas where we
get
have seen washouts as they came about during construction. That's where they did the tar and chip seal, where they put them somewhere and they sealed the top of it with chip seal. All those areas helped. They weren't the areas that washed. It's the areas that are the newer areas that was put in, or areas that weren't chip sealed.
So should part of our conversation with the developer be to extend that concept into some of the areas that potentially have been damaged during this latest?
The developer did the chip sealing on his own to prevent washouts in the past.
Yeah.
So he did it without even consulting me. They just did the chip seal.
So you think that might be something they do for wherever they find damage this time?
I would not be surprised if there's more areas of the trail, especially on some of the slopes that wash out, that are chip sealed.
Okay.
So we have the open space. There's still a few, there's still outfitting on the open space, and the big one we're still dealing with. And when I was out, you could see several streams of water coming through the face of that dam because there was a little bit of pressure down on the storm Monday from the rainstorm.
Just so the board's aware, with the storm on Friday, we had our public works crew was running around all over the township on Friday. And we had flooding at Community Park, we had flooding in the township building, downstairs in the lobby area. So that was a pretty significant event.
Okay.
And that's all I had for today.
That's a lot. Thank you, Brian. Yes.
When are you going to start looking at the Owen Road, Collins Drive, the south side of North Hill?
I believe that's the area that we were looking at for the grant for the second phase under the.
So the grant would be going in this fall, application, and that would be a year.
Probably a year before we hear anything.
Okay, so I just hope we can extend it further up Owen Road.
The goal with, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the goal with that was to look at the south side of the North Hill development that was identified in the Stormwater Regional Feasibility Study, and there's also going to be a segment that Mark is looking at to do potentially some in-house work and also with our back truck program. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes.
Because we don't have any stormwater management further up the road. It's a river.
But there is discussion about potentially doing an in-house project too. That part of what's happening right now with the feasibility study is Chris Peters, myself, and Mark Berlani met twice. Chris, I think you were.
I was at both.
We're both of them. And we're trying to take pieces of the projects that were outlined in the study and break it down into what our township streets department can do in-house versus having to go after grant money. So that's currently being worked on and broken down into pieces by Carroll Engineering, by Chris Peterson and his team. They're breaking that down to come up with ideas of what they think based upon their background work with Mark about what his guys can do in-house versus what we have to go out for.
If you need any resident input, that's kind of my neck of the woods.
Yes. So it's based upon what's in the study right now, as far as the areas, and then if there's potential expansions because of what they talk about, anecdotal from the streets guys being out in the streets, that's where the project are tweaked over what's a little bit there, but as far as right now, we're just trying to come up with the, I'll say buckets. Bucket A is what the township can do
bucket B is grant worthy, bucket C is, we gotta really plan for it. Because there might be property acquisitions involved or stuff like that.
Steve, I encourage you to go back and look at the feasibility study for that particular area, and if you've got comments about what you know from observation or other, just email Brian and Chris Peterson. They can include it in their overall assessment.
If you go to the area, the website for the feasibility study, and hit that link, both Chris and I get it. Okay. Email me directly when I get lost in my.
Yeah, there's a dedicated email for comments on that stuff.
Just a question about it, Brian.
Yes.
Your discussions about the feasibility study, not just the south side of North Hills, has there been any other discussion or thought of thinking further ahead also and prioritizing other projects within that study?
Yes, we've talked about that, but right now what we're looking to do, the big push right now is to separate it, separate the study into what the road crew can do in-house.
You mean the entire 16?
Yes, yes, we can lay them out and then they can be prioritized. And Mark had already talked about what he thinks the next priority to go towards. The next one would be that part for the budget for applying for the next grant. But as far as his priority with his guys, he's working in the background with Chris to come up with a list and then with the priority of because some projects could be like Fresh Meadows, they have to finish all the pipe in last year. So if we have a project that can get done quickly, it may be down the list of the priorities for you guys, but they can knock off part of that project quicker than taking another neighborhood spending 2 or 3 years to pipe that pipe in there, which there is one of those neighborhoods. I forget which one it is. Canterbury, so that's one they're going to move to after we're done here. Okay. But
we already approved the inspection for that neighborhood.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Brian?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Shelby.
The only item I would like to highlight this evening is a reminder that due to the Memorial Day holiday on Monday, that the zoning hearing board meeting or hearings will be held on Wednesday, May 28th at 7 p.m. here at the Township Administration Building. On their docket are 2 residential applications pertaining to setbacks and the application for the Kia development that appeared before the board back on April 15th.
So the setback ones, we saw one of them, right? The Ellis Lane one?
No, these are, there's one for 1224 Ashbridge, who is looking to encroach in the side yard setback, and one for 999 North New Street, who is looking to encroach in the front yard setback.
Okay, but they did involve salary requirements, right? So we didn't. Okay, thank you. Thanks for sticking with me. All right, let's move along here. Any questions for any of the engineer or the zoning officer? Okay, let's go to approval of the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes for April 15th. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Does anybody have any typo corrections or other adjustments? No. Okay, we've made a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Nate. Any public comments or questions? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Final agenda item is approval of the Treasurer's Report dated April the 30th for the General Fund, the Sewer Revenue Fund, the Waste and Recycling Fund, and the Capital Reserve Fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds. So I'll make a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report and the bills to be paid from the funds. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any board comments or questions on either the Treasurer's Report or the bills to be paid?
I just have a couple of questions. Chris, on page 1, under the general fund for revenues, it has building permits, $145,449. Is that typical to receive that amount of money within a month's time?
I can answer that question. No, but it was probably because there's a commercial fund.
Oh, okay. So I was just going to ask you where.
You may even, I can't speak for the commercial permit, what the commercial permits drive the price are.
That's correct.
So that was another. Okay.
Any other questions, John?
Yeah, check number 102186, that goes to the PICO for the administration building. There's 2 items there listed separately, and it goes from the same period of time, from March 13th, 2025 to April 8th, 2025. Why would there be 2 separate bills for the PICO for the administration building?
It's the same bill, but probably just separated out through different areas of the budget. So different categories
Okay,
within the
different
budget.
okay. Not like we have two different meters in that.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment or questions on the bills or the treasurer's report? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:51. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. All in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.